Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in here as we pump our way through this off season. The NFL just feels almost like it's right around the corner. We got a couple months here to work our way still through, looking at draft picks, looking at what the Hawks have done in free agency, looking at what's to come this upcoming season, the schematics of Mike Macdonald and how they've come along and what he's doing here and what he's implementing. We're going to be looking at all this stuff over the next month and a half here as we lead up into the season. But today, we're going to continue to round our way here through this draft class and looking at the final pick for your Seattle Seahawks in this last draft, which was a very successful one where you can find a lot of great sleepers, a lot of people that'll have, this is my favorite pick. No, this is my favorite pick over here. It was this guy. No, you guys are both wrong. This was the best pick when it's all said and done. And it speaks to how strong the class is, that you have probably so many that aren't necessarily incomplete. There's just everybody's in alignment and thinking it's a great draft, but just in alignment on which players they love most or which they think are going to turn out to be the biggest valued guys when it's all said and done. And when you take a receiver in the 7th round, like the Seahawks did with Ricky White out of UNLV, you're not going to have a lot of hope for him necessarily. We recently took a guy in the 7th round a few years ago out of, I forget what the name of the college was, but it was a mouthful of a college name out there. And of course, he's been able to kind of hang around the roster and had some moments here and there, but you don't often expect very much when it comes to 7th rounders. In this case, why I wanted to highlight him and why I wanted to say maybe there's a little bit something more here with this guy is I think that he's bringing a little bit more of a fuller skill set than what you would typically get from this. When we took, can't remember the guy's name, but a couple years ago when we took him in the 7th round, that was a guy that was really kind of a bubble screen yak guy at a small little tiny college that he played for. Wasn't a guy that ran a lot of, advanced route running stuff that you got to see from him on tape. It was a lot of kind of gadgety stuff. Whereas with Ricky White, what we're going to get to see is a guy that has got a full skill set as a wide receiver. He's the full meal deal. He can play the outside. He can play some slot. He also gives you special teams value, like Torrey Horton, kind of a little bit like what we saw in him, is that this guy gives you so many different things that he brings to the table as a player. And that's only going to help him out that much more in making the roster and maybe long-term being able to bring some impact. But this guy is a true blue wide receiver, both with Horton and him. I would say that if you had to kind of look at these guys and put them into kind of a category, it's that these are refined receivers. These are not raw goods that you're going to have to bring way far along to get anything out of them if they have something to give. These are guys that can run just about every route in the book, give you some yak ability, who've got some really nice hands, who just have a good sense and feel for how to run the routes, the pace of things, sometimes, stuttering the pace a little bit, just not going full speed 100% of the time. They understand the little nuances that you need to for the position to be successful at the NFL level. And it's why I wanted to highlight these two guys and why I still wanted to highlight Ricky White, even though we'd looked at Horton already, because he's very close to Horton in his skill set and what he brings. Horton's a better player. Horton's got probably some more upside to him. There's going to be some questions here. There's a reason this guy went in the 7th round, but I just don't want to understate the fact that this guy isn't just some throw him away 7th rounder that's not going to have any kind of impact. I can really see this guy eventually carving his way out because he is such a good receiver and he's had such good productivity. Another guy like we've seen with Horton there, where a lot of good productivity in college, but you still have actual upside too in addition to that you're going to be getting with this guy. When we look at him as far as on the surface, first things first, just from an overview status of things, he started out at Michigan as a freshman there and played a little bit of sparingly. Actually found a role out there on that Michigan State team. So got 196 yards and a touchdown against Michigan, showing some of that early promise out there for them. But that is Michigan State. I think he had probably a bit of a sense that, you're going to Michigan State. That's a team that tends to run the ball a lot. That's their flow. That's their go. So if you're going to Michigan State, you're not going to get a lot of pass heavy stuff going on. Probably realized that, and so he did transfer then down to UNLV. 2022, his first year there, 50 catches, 619 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 rush, but not really. He's not going to be really a rushing fly sweep guy. That's not his game necessarily. And then 2023, he had a real breakout campaign in a major way. 89 receptions, 1,483 yards with a 16.7 average per catch. So getting down the field, getting those chunk plays, 8 touchdowns, almost 106 yards a game. Set the UNLV receiving yardage record, earned preseason All-American honors then for 2024. So there was some actual legitimate hype on this kid coming into this 2024 season. He came back and didn't have a bad year. 83 receptions, 1,062 yards, 11 touchdowns, and also shows some versatility in special teams, which we will get to. A guy that has had a really good career there at UNLV. Receptions, second all time in school history with that. Receiving yardage, I believe it puts him at the top, I want to say. Number of 100-yard games. So one of the better wide receivers that's ever come through UNLV. And when we talk about this final season and looking at it with Ricky White, is some of what you'll look into going deep dive on him is, well, he had a little bit of a step backwards this year. Well, he was ready to go and explode, and then he just kind of pittered out. Well, first off, the statistics don't really back that up. Number one. Number two, to say that this guy was the focal point on this offense and that he was carrying the load, where you need those Anheuser-Busch horses to get like 7 of them to actually pull the load, and you just have him out there as the one Anheuser-Busch horse out there just trying to pull the whole thing on himself. So there's a little bit of that going on. And then I don't know if you guys remember about this, but there was a story that came out 3 games into the season that got a lot of people's attention. It's one of those NIL situations where all the poo-poo people that hate NIL go, see, this is why NIL is so stupid. Is if you remember, UNLV had a quarterback that they had in there due to start, and he was 3 games into the season. They were 3-0. Things were riding along well. He was playing well. And then he decided that he wasn't being paid enough by UNLV, that they hadn't gotten everything taken care of with him like they had promised on that NIL front. And he just peaced out. He's just like, I'm out of here. See you guys. It's been nice. I had fun. I'm out. And so the reason I bring this up is that not only are you playing on a UNLV team that's not going to have a lot of other weapons like you are, so you can have teams draw a lot of attention to you, but then also you lose your quarterback, and now you're going to a backup. And let's face it, UNLV's backup quarterback is not some former 5-star guy that they're just locked and loaded. They've got a laundry list of guys behind the starter that they can go to. It's not the case at all. And you can feel last year on some throws, and a few I will show you here on the tape, where he's not always just able to get the ball in the right spot to Ricky, and Ricky can get open, Ricky can get some separation, but Ricky can't throw it. And so that's also a little bit when we get into the narrative on him on this final college season as to him not doing better or being able to match that 1,400-yard season. You lose your quarterback. You're the focal point of the offense. You don't have a lot of help to take off the heat, even though the competition level isn't necessarily the highest that you're going up against at a UNLV. But a factor worth probably considering here with Ricky, and probably a fairly major one here, is that final year of college seemed to have dinged him down in not a significant way, but enough so to get him down to a 7th-round pick for a guy that probably should have been taken a couple rounds earlier. Looking at his raw score, it's not particularly good. Now, this is a raw score that's going to be based on his combine numbers. And when it comes down to why he dipped, another part of this on top of maybe not as much of a great final year of college had to do with his testing times and what he did overall. Now, the vertical at 38 inches is pretty nice, so that part was good. You can see he's got a okay broad, 10 feet. That's kind of a bare minimum prerequisite spot you want to be. Weight, a little bit lighter than maybe you'd like. He's a little bit thinner on that side of it. He's got the 4.62 and the 1.61 10-yard split. So those are not good numbers for wide receivers. Now, he did on his pro day come back and run a 4.41, but that's quite a difference, isn't it? Running a 4.4 and then running the 4.6. Which of them are you? And was that a scout out there on his pro day who was just in love with him and, waited a hairbeat of a second as he's coming off the line? There's some of these rumors about these scouts on pro days where they'll have this player that they really love. And so they'll kind of rig the numbers a little bit because they don't want him taken off the list. They really like that guy. So you wonder a little bit about the difference of testing times on him on that. I will say that he plays pretty fast. You don't feel like speed is a problem for out there. He doesn't feel like a 4.62 guy out on the field to me. So maybe it's somewhere kind of split the difference somewhere in the middle. Arm length, 31.75 is fine. You want 32 inches usually, so he's right on the marker for that. So not a great raw score guy on this, but better than the 4.89 that it's posted right now because he did improve on that 40. Not a bad vertical leap, at least on that side of it. College ranking-wise, these are your top PFF wide receivers from last season. As you can see here, Jaden Higgins got taken high in this draft there at number 4 on this list. Trey Harris also taken pretty high in this last draft. McMillan on there at 23. So some recognizable names: Jack Bech, Tez Johnson, Pat Bryant, all guys that got drafted. Xavier Restrepo, and then we've got Ricky White at number 51. So Ricky White, 51 grade, 51 highest rated receiver last year in college football at 80.8. So around some very good company. Below him, you got Jalen Noel, Dante Thornton Jr., two other guys that did get drafted in this draft. So kind of interesting how many of these guys actually end up getting picked off of this PFF grade system. We know someday Jeremiah Smith, 2 years from now, will also be a very highly drafted guy. Advanced statistical wise, looking at him there, got 4 years in college, starting out, as I said earlier, on Michigan State in that first year. You can see that there was some really great improvement from UNLV's 2022 to 2023 season, where he really jumped forward with that 90.5 grade. I mean, that's going to make you about as high as graded a wide receiver in all of college football at that grade. He posted that almost 1,500 yard season, and then came back and again, still pretty solid again this year. You can see the catch percentage was pretty close to what it was last year on that side of it. So these are just more markers too, that he didn't necessarily have this great big drop as much as people say. His drop percentage rate went to 8.2% from 5.4, but he only had 2 more cumulative drops on the whole season. So not worse there on that side of it. He's got 128 snaps out of the slot. And so he's spending about 65% of his time out wide, 34% of his time in the slot. But I do think that this is also indicative that he's not just a pure slot guy. He'll have enough speed to work on the outside. I think some of the questions will be a little bit about physicality through his route, and can he get through that at his size? That'll be more of the questions with him on the outside. I don't think it's going to come down to speed, personally. We'll see on that part. Contested catch-wise, not the biggest part of his game. You saw even in his breakout year, he had 9 of 19 contested catches for a 47% contested catch rate. This last year, 9 of 23. So he can do it a little bit. It's a big knock on him a little bit that's like a problem in his game. And I wouldn't say it's a big problem in his game. It's just not as much the forefront of his game and what he's going to lead with and how he's going to get things done. 423 of his nearly 1,000 yards came via yak. 577 of his 1,500 yards was yak the prior year. I tend to say that if you get a guy that's, right around even 70% of his total yards is yak yardage, that's a yak guy. You get into more of kind of 50, he can give you a little bit of it and give you some. He's not a nothing with it, but it's not a forefront part of his game, I would say, either. So he's not going to be as dynamic as Horton, let's say, in the open field. He'll give you a little bit of moves here and there, but it's all said and done, he's going to get done what he's going to get done through the route running and the catch, and that's mainly what you're going to get from him as a player in that way. So still solidly graded this year, even in what was supposed to be considered a little bit of a downturn kind of season. We'd all like to have a kind of downturn type of year like this, wouldn't we? And so let's pop over and take a look here at some of his tape and what he does bring to the table here, which is a lot of fun stuff here on this side of it. A lot of similarities here to him, to Horton in certain respects. Horton, a little bit of a bigger player, but this guy's got some stuff to him too as well. All right, so you're going to look at the little thinner guy here, operating this time from the slot, and we're going to look a little bit at his route running here to begin with, as I want to show you some of his just nice little ability at getting freed up in that way here. In cutting routes like this, he just smoothly gets open. The corner here just keeping an outside kind of leverage, leaving the inside open. I don't know if the corner thought he had help here or not. And it's not doing anything hard, but just a lot of separation and easy separation that you see from this guy. Feels him on the outside, comes back in. In cutting routes like this, post routes, he's especially very, very good at, I would say. Here we're going to get him on the outside, top of your screen, in cutting route on this one. It's not super sharp. You'd like to maybe have it's not quite as, rounded up, but he's got the guy so challenged on the top side. And this is a little bit of an indicator to speed here, because the safety if you look at the safety at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, he's got to get all the way to the top side. So the corner to the top side understands that he's got to stay on top here. And that's just what Ricky White gets to take advantage of. Not a bad route. Maybe would like it a little bit sharper. He might be getting a little bit more depth to keep him away from the linebackers underneath. and make sure he creates enough of a hole there for the quarterback to get it to him. And then this is after the catch, by the way. I have to split this up a little bit, but he actually does bust this off after the catch. I just can't show it as one highlighter. I get copywritten. So what's cool about this is you get a little bit of route running, and then you get right after the catch him turning into a runner. One little cut there. And that's what he gives you as far as yak. It'll be sort of the open field cut vision. I can sense if I take this little bit of a different lane to this, I can extend this run out a little bit. But again, too, you got to feel a little bit of his speed here, don't you? Defender eventually gets an angle on him to get to him, but able to open it up a little bit there, which gives you some encouragement here that he's going to have enough there to get that done. Again, operating in off the slot here. Has to get through some traffic, has to avoid physicality, and then get to the out route. So a little bit of a condensed split here next to his other receiver on the outside. Watch him sort of get through the traffic, make sure he doesn't get slowed down by any defender in the second level, and then runs a really nice route out to the edge. You want to make sure you're constantly going. You got a long developing route like this, you can't get held up by physicality. It already takes too long for you to get to the spot where you need to get. So you've got to avoid physicality here, and then get out. So good job not getting held up at all, staying away from that. He gets into the body of the defender here, coming out, gets into number 4, gets into the body so that then you can clear away from him, right? Don't just start cutting away from him here. Get into his body, subtle contact, break away. It's a little bit of a nuance there on the route running. See, he gets into his body. He goes right. He first clears this guy, but then gets into the body of this guy and then breaks away. Because you create your separation. Arroyo was talking about this as far as what his technique was out of Miami. Sometimes you want to get into the defender so you can create the space. Get close so you can get away, I think was the quote from Arroyo. But then a nice catch there, contested catch there on the sideline. Complete the process. Nice little bit of route running, and you finish the deal there. This is a little bit of an example to me of quarterback play being not the greatest at times here. It's an excellent run route. He actually ends up almost getting away with a little bit of a false start. He times it so well. But starts inside, cuts it outside, and you know you've got the defender in trouble when you get him to do this. See that? See the arm pulled out on the back end of the guy right there? That means I've gotten my ass beat. That means I know I'm about to give up a catch right there. I'm definitely giving him a catch. So trying to pull him back and keep him back to him there. And you see that if the quarterback throws this out wide, the quarterback's already thrown this ball. If he actually puts it out wide past the numbers, he gives his guy a chance. But instead, he puts it on the defender and lets the defender get back into the play. So when you talk about him having a disappointing final year of college that gets brought up, there's a good amount of these throws I'm seeing at times where the quarterback's not putting it on time, not putting them in the right spot. And these are the things you're going to expect from a smaller college that lost their number one wide quarterback 3 games into the year. It's not a shock as to that you're not seeing these passes as good and as well positioned and placed. So something that we probably want to give him a little bit of credit for on this, where it's not all his fault. But nice run route, stick the inside, get outside, work off the physicality. Just not the greatest of throws in there from the quarterback. This one could have been a 99-yard touchdown right here. And the cornerback knows it. So you have him operating again in the slot here. He's just going to run a simple little slant route, it looks like here. And the corner panics like hell. They're kind of showing almost a little bit of a cover 0 look here is the defense. And the corner ends up panicking like hell here. But if that's completed, this corner doesn't rip him down and you complete this pass, Ricky's probably still running. So I showed you just the last cut a second ago. What does good route running do to cornerbacks? It gets them grabby, it gets them panicking, it gets them pass interference. That's how you can tell a lot of times with route running. Yeah, well, they'll open up, they'll go make catches, they'll create separation. That's one way to do it. But another way to do it is if a guy's just getting torn down, or you're seeing that the corners are having to do too much physically to try to keep them with him. Speaks to a little bit of the suddenness here. This guy had to panic this quickly on it. It's almost like if they run a slant route, I'm toast. I got to just pull them down. Feet and release at the line of scrimmage are some nice things that Ricky brings to play, and just good footwork at the line of scrimmage to kind of create some confusion with the cornerback, to give yourself some time to separate. Watch his footwork here. Nice little pitter-patter release. Just kind of freezes the cornerback. Freezes that cornerback for a second, and that's just all he needs to then get his cut inside. Create the separation of space right there. So he does this completely with his release. Very nicely done. You're going to be an undersized guy like him. You've got to have good releases off the line of scrimmage. You got to have nice footwork off the line of scrimmage. Here, just a little bit of an indicator of how he doesn't have to go full speed on every route. He'll bring the right speed to what he has to bring into play for what's required of the play. You got a zone drop here by the defense. He's working his way through the traffic of the zone, looking for the hole, and he doesn't overrun this too fast. Watch kind of how he just kind of stutters his pace a little bit and allows the coverage to kind of open up for him in there. Just get past this last defender underneath, and there's a hole right there for the quarterback to throw to. So this isn't him running some sharp route. This is more of him on a feel. He's feeling the coverage, feeling how he has to come through the zone, and it's perfectly timed for a touchdown. Not coming off full speed there. You see that? He knows he's got a free release. He's going into route on that. Very well done. A couple more of these route runnings. I just want to show you this is really this kind of a centerpiece, I think, of his game and what he does bring. So again, in cutting route, a little bit like the last one I showed you. Got to work through the underneath linebacker, clear the linebacker, come through. Don't come through too fast off the break. Lean right in there. Give your quarterback a nice little target underneath between the top coverage and the underneath coverage. So he can feel zones. He can feel where he needs to sit down. He can feel the pace he needs to go to get into zones. Smart player. And this is important because there's going to be some of this in the West Coast offense you're going to run here where you want the receivers to feel things a little bit and react off it appropriately. Of course, option routes and stuff are a big part of NFL now, as much as ever. How about a comeback route here? Give you a little bit of a different part of his route tree here. So we got him here in the slot again. 35% of the time last year in the slot. Or sorry, it's out route. Not come back, out route. It's a good little route there. Cuts it off sharp. I like too here is that he creates the separation quick here with the route. Doesn't let the corner's creeping. The corner thinks this is already going to be probably an out route, right? So the corner's playing this pretty well. Runs a good route. Corner drives on the route. The part I like about Ricky and the reason I wanted to show this rep is watch how Ricky goes back to the ball. Back to the ball. See how that corner is undercutting that thing? If you flatten that out and you just drift at the 11-yard line and go towards the sideline in your drift, you're giving the cornerback an opportunity to come back in and make that play. Maybe even jump that route. Maybe even pick six it. But because you come back 2 yards from where you are, you're coming back to the ball. That's what you want your wide receivers to do. So little techniques, little nuances, little advancements he's got in his game and how he can run it. It does stand out. A bit of a secondary route here. Again, that feel here where he's coming off the slot, not initially open, but having a good sense even off of not being initially open as to where he can kind of sit down in the zone to find some open spaces. Smart route runner. Smart receiver. Just kind of waits for, see the underneath line, there's the underneath linebacker here. and he knows he's here. Linebacker drifts away. He doesn't leave that, just lets the linebacker drift. And then he's still got a spot, sits down, carries it back a little bit back to the top of the field, moving with his quarterback. So they're on it initially, break off, get to the second route. Good job. Good feel with him through zones. Maybe even a little bit better than what I had seen with Horton in that respect. Kind of a thing that does stand out when you do watch him. He can occasionally take the top off the defense. I think some of what happened with this last year, and you didn't get more of this and more of the big plays from him last year, in my opinion, had a little bit more to do with the fact that the quarterback play just wasn't great last season. They didn't have the guy with the arm to get it to him. Even this throw here, I mean, he's got to sit here and wait on this and slow down on this. It's a broken kind of coverage, but it's just even on the big throws here, he's got to wait for the ball to get there. The quarterback's doing everything he can to get this ball just to him. It does stand out a little bit when you're watching him on that. He does provide some yak. Like I talked about a second ago, it's more a little bit of, I'm going to create the yak off of mainly just good open field vision. But you can see he's got some sharp cuts he can pull. He's got a little bit of an understanding with timing here on this catch. First guy, second guy, nice spin move, comes back again. So three broken tackles on this play. Pretty impressive. Gave him a little bit of that Horton Hezzy there. A little bit of the Horton Hezzy. Not a big centerpiece, but he's got a little bit to his game too. It's not a nothing thing. Stop and start, runs hard, goes and gets the first down. We're just hoping to get a few yards here on first down, and he just goes and gets the first. Tough football player, too. I mean, he's one of those receivers. I'm not a receiver, I'm a football player. So you can well let him work in space a little bit. He's not a yak monster, but he's a baby yak monster. Look at that. Able to make the catch and then stiff arm his way out of the catch and go get the touchdown. Get off me. And then fight through two tough tackles there at the end to go get the score. 185-pound guy shrugging off two tacklers here. One of them a linebacker, by the way. Every once in a while, it gives you a little bit of flash with this. Every little once in a while. Get a nice little extension on the catch here. So he's going to be operating out of the slot to the high side of your screen. That's where you want to lock in on him here. And just extends the catch here nicely. Quick throw. Works off the first guy. Breaks it back the second way. Nice job. Very nicely done on his part. Last one here for the yak stuff. You can see he's got that good feel where right after the catch, he can feel the defender and twist off of him. I've shown you a couple of these yaks. That's kind of the way he creates a lot of his yak, is just kind of anchors himself down here after the catch. And then the guy just kind of flips off of him. So he's got a little bit of that and then gets right to the hesitation there. Nice job. So three broken tackles just on this little play. But that sort of, I can catch and feel the defender. I'm going to hit the brakes, let him fly right by, kind of move a little bit. He's got that to him. So a little bit of ability to cut back across the field. A little bit of I can come to a stop and get you flying past me. The main centerpiece points of him when you talk about him as a yak guy. But not the biggest, most major part of his game, but that's okay. Doesn't have to be. Like Torrey Horton, another thing that I'm sure really was a little bit of a driver to Seattle when they watched him. And that is that with Horton, I showed you a couple days ago, that especially you get him down in the red zone, he's got the post route down pat. I mean, he's really mastered the post route where if he gets single coverage on that outside, they're going to be able to eat those guys up all day. And you better have safety help over the top to close down on them, or it's going to be a touchdown. And like that, when you watch this guy run post routes, especially down by the end zone, like this play, it's almost like an automatic touchdown. I mean, the corner's like jogging. He knows he's been beat so bad. And he does it with the release. I showed you he's got some nice feet at the line of scrimmage to kind of press you a little bit and get you already in a little bit of trouble. Almost is able to kind of lull them to death. It feels like the cornerbacks at the line of scrimmage with this release sometimes, where he just gets them stopped and the feet just don't move. They're trying to be patient, but he's just too quick with it. But he's able to get open with ease on these kind of routes. This is definitely a mainstay within the West Coast offense, asking receivers to run exactly this kind of role. Also here, another one just exactly the same kind of way. Down by the red zone, read option. And this one's going to be one where you're going to get a penalty flag on this one because of the fact that, as I've shown you in a couple of these cuts already, these guys definitely panicked on Ricky, and they would yank and tear and rip at that jersey if they weren't there close in coverage. Same way here. Gets him with the release inside, and there's a flag you can see at the top of the screen here. If you look right there, it's right there coming on in. So he definitely got hit with the flag on this one. Why? Because he was going to be butt-ass open there. Buck naked open right there. That's what he was going to be. So the corner had to freak out, grab him. I'd love to see maybe the stats on Ricky White this year of how many times he was able to cause penalties against him. Because it seemed like there was quite a bit on just the tape I watched of him. I'll tell you that. At least a little bit on that. Contested catch-wise, not a big part of his game, but he can give you maybe a little bit of it. He's not horrible in contested catch situations, but just not the biggest, most major part of his game. You'll get a little bit of it sprinkled in. It's like the yak. He'll sprinkle a little bit in as a seasoning, but it's not the main entree of Ricky White's game, I would say. Nice little back shoulder throw here. Good job holding on for the catch. I did mention as well that the bad throw aspect of it is another thing to keep in mind with this kid for maybe a little bit of the lack of taking that same kind of point of production as he had the prior year. And a couple of these plays I think are going to show this pretty clearly. Operating from the slot, he's going to run a skinny fade here from the slot. He's going to get open. Quarterback's late to see it. Quarterback underthrows the football. This should have been an easy touchdown throw. But look how he brings it all the way back to him there. Just completely recognizes it late, which is kind of weird because he's looking that way the whole way as the quarterback. But it's an incomplete pass because, this thing should be out of your hand right there. So late to throw it and then underthrows the ball. That should have been an easy touchdown right there. There's more than a couple of these on tape as well where he creates separation. I mean, look at the separation here. Bottom of your screen. That's separation. What do they like to say? If he's even, he's leaving. That's why right here the throw's got to be gone. You see it, look at the quarterback. He's staring right at him. If he's even, he's leaving. You got to throw this. But instead kind of waits that extra beat, and that's all it takes to kind of leave an underthrow ball that just kind of dies on the vine. Another one, almost like the last one, you're going to think that this is a replay, and unfortunately it is not a replay. So coming from another skinny fade here, another one here where creates the separation. He's even. Right here, he's even. Throw it over the top. Like the quarterback throws it at a good time here, but he decides to back shoulder him. Why would you back shoulder this? Put it into the back of the end zone. Back corner of the end zone. It's a touchdown all day long. Instead, he decides to back shoulder it. I'd be frustrated if I was Ricky on this. Like, just throw it. Throw it to the back. Touchdown all day. Instead, you turn it into a much harder catch for Ricky on this than it had to be. But quarterback play, kind of a little bit of a struggle for UNLV last year, and he had to work his butt around through it, unfortunately. Kind of just the name of the game with that one. A couple others will show here a little bit of his run blocking. He's okay as a blocker. Would not say that this is a guy that's going to be a monster in that way. He's willing. He'll get after it. He certainly is going to do his part. And it does show up almost a little bit more, if I may say, with the blocking at times with him on special teams as much as anything else, because he's going to be a very good special teamer for your Seattle Seahawks. But here working on the outside, he's just going to get locked up on number 3. Lay a nice little block on him out here on the edge. Get him sealed up well. It doesn't super sustain it, but helps to spring the play. So functional as a blocker. We go blocking when we go to yak. We go to contested catch. I'd say I wouldn't give them bad grades on that. Just say that it's functional. Here in press, takes advantage of the press, makes it look like a release at first. Come back and lay a nice little block there. Guy gets tackled, but he does his job here. So he's feisty. He gets after it. You can see. He's not light with it. He's not going to be weak with it. On this play, you get a little bit of so look to the bottom of your screen here and kind of a dead play here at first, but then he recognizes here, bottom of your screen, number 11, he's going to recognize the plays coming back his way. So when you look right here, the ball carrier is in the middle of your screen. His defender has a pathway to get back to the ball carrier. How much do you care? How much do you want to block? How much do you want to help out your teammate? Because here a lot of receivers would be like, look, I'm not in position. What are you going to do? I tried. Look at that, though. Gets back around on him and lays the block. So I just like the effort here with here. The effort to get back around, not give up on this play, and then stay back in, spring him up a little bit. Would like to see him maybe get a little bit harder with the block, but you like the effort just to get in front of the guy again. Not give up on that play. Let your back get the play extended a little bit. Just a little bit there. If you're going to make the roster as a 7th round wide receiver, being dynamic as a receiver, being able to be productive as a receiver is helpful. But if you're coming to a team that's already got some pretty good wide receivers and you're going to be stuck behind the depth chart on those guys, one clear and very easy path for these guys to find their way onto the roster and solidify that roster spot is to bring special teams value. And what you are going to get with this kid is going to be special teams value. He's blocked a couple of punts out there at UNLV. He wants to be he wants to play hard on special teams. He wants to do, have an impact. You see him, like I said, as a blocker at times out there, and that you can feel that part of his game and it sets out. But he's got a couple blocks here. This one, I got to split it up a little bit so I can show you the how it goes, but block this so well that this thing's going to come to a stop in the end zone where they can just pick this up. But breaks through, goes and gets the block. He's got a few of these on his resume. Definitely wouldn't be surprised he ends up making the team because of the special teams value that he does bring. Here's where that ball goes. Look at how the ball just lands and just stops in the end zone. Touchdown. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you for that one there, Ricky. That will be a touchdown. Also a really good blocker. Told you on the guys on that. He'll get after it there. You see that on the reps with them on special teams. Here you get a fake. He's all over the fake. Goes and makes the tackle in space. That's a wide receiver doing that, folks. So he's got some tenacity to him. He's got some toughness to him. This is a football player, not just a wide receiver. It's a football player. And you love to see this all over it. And look, by the way, if you look there, this fake, look at the red, look at the first down marker right there. So this isn't a matter of like, well, this is an empty tackle here. If he doesn't make this tackle in space, this is going to go for a first down. So great job on his part from a special team standpoint. That's how you can make the team. That's how I would tell him. Go make this team. Go be an absolute demon when it comes to your play on special teams, and you will find a way to go and get on this team, and then let yourself develop into the background as a receiver and then kind of further solidify that down the line. This is a little bit of the path that Doug Baldwin took. Doug Baldwin was always your up man as a punt in the punt game, right? He was always the guy that's there to be your kind of safety guy for anybody getting penetration as a punter. And he did that all the way through his career as that guy. It wasn't just initially and then they moved him out of the role. They always had him into that role. And so you find your pathway kind of sometimes through odd ways to get to where you're going to get to and what you want to be as far as a wide receiver. Ricky wants to do that. I don't know if he'll make the roster on this, but I would offer to you that even if he doesn't necessarily be able to make the active roster because of some of the numbers game that's at play here with so many wide receivers that we have right now fitted, and then he may not just be able to kind of quite crack through on the lineup in that way, this is still a guy to watch from a development angle. And that Baldwin came through in his first year, had some really nice moments. That Tavares Jackson, I think that 70-yarder on a post, on a slant route they ran that year, but then had a little bit of some quiet years there where he had to kind of wait his time and bide his time until he could come back and get his opportunity. And maybe something similar is going to happen here in play with Ricky White, where he can have a little bit of time in that way to develop, and that we come to find that we got a really good dynamic receiver down the line in this kid, and not maybe star power, but a guy that absolutely can go out there and give you some really nice play, even though you picked him that deep. The Rams last year took a Jordan Whittington out of Texas, a guy similarly into the 6th, 7th round area of things. Didn't have a lot of a hope, or not a lot of people thought that he was going to do a lot necessarily. And he came out in his first year and he was doing a great job at creating separation. And I like Ricky White a lot more than I liked Whittingham coming out last year with Texas. And so, I'd have a lot more confidence in Ricky being even more productive. So if a guy like that can do it out of the 7th round last year for the Rams, why can't Ricky White? Why can't he as well? But it was a great capper for your Seattle Seahawks on this draft, finishing it up with Ricky White, going with the 1-2 combination of Damian Martinez and Ricky White. These are both guys that I had graded easily a couple more rounds ahead of where they went. So you just can't argue with the value there. These are going to be players that, whether or not they're going to come in and be pure starters, they're going to contribute. They're going to help this team out. And they've got a variety of different things they can do to help the team out. Does Damian Martinez have to be a bell cow back, or can he just find a role of being a short yardage back? Can Ricky White be that back end wide receiver on the roster that's an absolute impact player when it comes to special teams? Been a lot of those kind of wide receivers through the years on really great NFL teams that get kind of forgotten about. Back in the day, a Don Beebe with the Buffalo Bills. The Patriots had their guy there for many years, whose name I'm forgetting, but who was their special teams guy there for a long time. Larry Izzo type guys. So you need these guys on your team, and especially with special teams now factoring in more than ever with the 35-yard fair catch touchdown. If you down it now in the end zone, it's going to go out to the 35-yard line. That's going to make teams want to kick off now and make teams have to bring it on the up back. And so you need these guys who can tackle. You need these guys who can play special teams now more than ever because of that rule change almost just solely alone, with the kickoff coming back into play. But I like this guy a lot, and it's not empty on this. I wouldn't have looked at this guy in the 7th round if I didn't think he had something to offer. He's got something to offer. This was a good draft for your Seattle Seahawks. There's a couple picks in there that I'm like, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of picks in this draft where I go, hey, I can see the value. Hey, I can see you shooting for upside. And if you have one real major takeaway on this NFL draft as we kind of wrap this up and looking at this draft, there's that one major takeaway that you got from it. It's that you were able to go out there and look for upside. You were able to go out there and seek that out and have that be your main driving force as to what was impelling you in this draft. You didn't go for floor. You didn't go for Tim Ruskell type of drafts that we've had in recent years, where you're looking at it and you're going, boy, you got a lot of Boy Scouts. You got a lot of guys that are all about ball, but you didn't necessarily get a lot of upside with that either to their side of it. So you like that they pulled that off in this draft, and that they were able to kind of swing it that way. I was trying to see if I could bring up a couple things here. I want to show you guys to finish up on this just in regards to this draft and how people are kind of looking at it. You can see that on a grade scale, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but we saw in the grade scale of this draft that many of the quote-unquote experts who at times have been very hard on your Seattle Seahawks were actually very kind on them. Your Seahawks there is the 3rd team rated here on this board that I'm showing you right now, and you can see A minus, A minus, A minus, A, B plus, B plus, A, B plus, A, B plus, A, B plus, A, B plus, B, A, B plus. So you have right there from Chad Reuter to Dan Wilkins, Tim Belk, PFF, PFN. Who do you want to go with? ESPN, USA Today, Fox Sports, variety of all of these different publications for your Seattle Seahawks in this last draft. And nobody had your Seattle Seahawks below a B in the draft. I think that speaks pretty heartily to how strong this draft was, how well received it was, and that you did such a good job by staying to value. Now, some of this is a little bit of, I think, an extension also of the fact that you had so many picks, and that experts are always going to give you a little bit of an extra additional added kind of bump, so to speak, for the fact that you that was the case on it. But I don't want to take it away as well, as that it still is very impressive that for so many experts who tend to usually batter around our Seattle Seahawks when it comes to the draft grades, that they love this draft quite a bit, and that especially when it comes to, and I was looking for this one last graphic I wanted to show you, which was just that the one real last part of this draft that stood out that people have talked about that I think is also, on top of looking at upside, that's just kind of the surprising part to me on this is that you were able to both go for upside in this draft, and then you were able to also find productivity. So you weren't just going for upside where it's a guy that's super raw, that's not giving you a lot as far as a player goes, and you're hoping he can eventually find his footing now as a pro. Maybe he's been injured a lot. Maybe he's dealt with multiple coaches. It's been nothing but just kind of raw. Everything's raw. Everything's kind of uneven, so to speak. And that's not the case. You got guys in this draft that actually have the upside, but then have the productivity. Riley Mills, who's had multiple years of good productivity at Notre Dame, and 8 sacks last year, and injured just right at the end of the year last year, but that's a top 50 player if he's not injured. Nick Emawari is a guy that has all this upside, but it's also been a very good player in what he's brought. Torrey Horton, 2,000-yard seasons. Before this last year, there was a little bit of a dip. Ricky White with a couple of 1,000-yard seasons. So that's really the odd part here, really on the end all on this, which is that you went out there and you got guys actually have that upside. You can see it in them, but then you're also getting the productivity on most of these guys on that other end too. Even a Milroe guy, as raw as he's been, has given you 2 years of starting experience in college football out of the SEC. This is an Anthony Richardson with just 13 starts coming out where you're going, man, I don't know what we're getting here at all as far as he's not played at all. He needs more seasoning. And with Milroe, I think to the 2 years of starting is kind of good enough as far as that seasoning goes. He's got a long way to go. But again, productivity with the ceiling of Milroe. You get the 1-2. You get them both. And that's kind of unusual in NFL. That's kind of hard to pull that off in the NFL. It's much more that you end up having to kind of pick one lane or the other on that. And I can't quite find that graphic that I wanted to show you guys. So I'll have to show that to you guys another time when I can eventually locate wherever the hell I put that thing. It's somewhere in here. We got a donation from Garth Knight. It's good to see you in the house, Garth. Hope you're doing well. I know it's a little bit harder on these day shows than the night shows for you there. He says, Brando, minus quarterback rank, the most important offensive positions from least to most. Ooh, good question. Minus the quarterback, the most important from least to most. I would say tackle would probably be the next most important position for me, Garth. I would then go with edge rusher would be the next most important position for me. I'm thinking on the next ones here. I would probably then go wide receiver. Go wide receiver, cornerback, guard. No, wide receiver, cornerback, defensive tackle, guard, tight end, center, inside linebacker, safety. I think I would go, and then, I'd go running back. No, I go inside linebacker, running back, and then safety. So I'll go through it again. We go quarterback, tackle, edge rush, wide receiver, cornerback. For me, guard, then defensive tackle. Yeah, maybe Mike. I'd be torn on this one a little bit. I'm a little bit torn on this one. I got McGarth on that one. That's the general vibe I'd go with, I guess. I could probably be talked into, inside linebacker is more important than tight end, or inside linebacker is more important than center. So I don't have a real strong opinion about that one in particular, that side of it. I could kind of go either way with those ones. They're very closely aligned. But I would feel strongly about the kind of the front four on that, where it's, tackle to edge to receiver to cornerback. Then it starts to get a little bit murky on that. Am I more defensive tackle or guard at that point? Maybe more defensive tackle, but then I want to come back guard. Then I'm a little bit unsure on where I'd stand up between tight end, center, and inside linebacker. Probably inside linebacker, now that I think about it, Garth. It's a great question, though, man. I'd waffle on this one. I think I'd be heavily on the waffle one with that, where I wouldn't be quite sure on that one where I'd go with that. But it feels like that's the right order. Thank you for the dono, though, man. Good to see you in the house. I'd finish up with safety would be the one I'd probably finish up with. That'd be my one on the back end. I'd prioritize probably the offensive line a little bit more than others would, Garth, too. Certainly probably NFL teams would have more of the other positions out of those. Certainly Seattle. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation, Jeffrey. Sam, I see Ghost Darnold's going to get benched by week 5. It's a possibility. You've set a stage here for a situation to where this could go. For a way that this situation could go. I got a text. With the offensive line. I hope this offensive line develops and comes forward, Jeffrey. I hope that the coaches they've brought in that are going to be that good at instructing these guys, that the new zone system is going to fit to guys like Christian Haynes so much better so that it's going to make them look better just by the nature of a change of scheme. I hope all of those things are going to be true. But I do think that with Darnold, you have a danger zone that you want to avoid with him as a quarterback. And it's not an easy danger zone to avoid. Every NFL team is going to struggle at times with the pressure and getting away from having guys, dealing with that in a way where it just doesn't, it's every team's dealing with this issue. John's talked about the offensive lines are problematic for everybody. But with Darnold, we do know that if you get him too much consistent inundation of pressure, that he's just not going to deal with that well, or he hasn't dealt with that well in his history. There are times that it's not completely as bad as it was with the New York Jets. There was improvement there with him with the Vikings and moving through some of the pressure-based stuff at times when he had to deal with it there. But the more through the season that it started to get more increased, the more that he was dealing with that. Now it's become an inundation. He's not got the Geno Smith skill set and advancement to be able to work around that and still find productivity on that. It's a struggle for any quarterbacks in that kind of situation, but I think especially for Sam, it's that specific, can deal with some of it here and there, but if you just have it, the noise turn on up too loud and that it's just too many plays that he's dealing with that type of stuff, there's going to be the accumulation of that's going to add up. And you get into by midway through the year, you're getting a little bit of a different version of the quarterback out there. So it's going to be really the key part to track with Darnold this year. I know he can make all the throws. I know he's got some good mobility. I know he's capable of improvising some, but you've got to give him the good defense, the great defense, and you've got to give him the strong running game, and you've got to give him improved pass protection, or you're not going to get anywhere close to the best version of Darnold. You're not going to get a quasi right on the edge of being a top 10 kind of quarterback in this sport. Instead, you're going to be back now into more of the 20s range of things. And so the team probably understands this and hopefully is keeping this at the forefront of their brains a little bit. Part of one of the reasons why, Jeffrey, I would have liked to have gone out and dealt with a little bit more of this offensive line this offseason to get that more solidified for Sam. But they really are in on the fact that it's the coaching and that it's going to be the new coaches coming in that's going to make this get done, and that they've got ultimate faith and trust that that's going to how this plays out. We'll see on that one, but I could see it going that way if these coaches are not able to clean all of this stuff up because you've not necessarily increased the talent level intrinsically or hugely. It's been moderately improved. And certainly guys like Christian Haynes are going to take better to this zone scheme, but it's not been taken miles and miles. And this was a unit that was one of the worst in the league last year in both pass protection and run blocking. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation, Jeffrey. Half of our blooper reel plays last year were punt returns. The other half were center offensive line snaps. Who you got at center and punt returns for us this year? Ooh, great question. I think Torrey Horton is going to be our punt returner next year. I think that's the role they would love to see him fit into. And he's had some punt return touchdowns. He's really good at it. He's got a good history of doing it in bad weather. So, down there in Lumen, that ball is going to get up in the air and it's going to spin and the wind's going to take it here. It's going to be kind of cold and it's going to come down like an Acme weight sometimes. So it's not always the easiest in that stadium to catch those kind of punts. But I think Torrey Horton is going to be the guy that can do it and do it really well, and hopefully much more improved from where we were last year. I tell you, I did like the kid that we brought in halfway into the year for D. Williams, who came in and he was just able to just catch everything. It was very good to see. But center snaps, Hopefully that gets improved. That was a problem at times last year, and I'm not as certain as to who's going to be starting at center at this point, Jeffrey. Oluwatimi would be the lead cat to do it, but Sundell might be a better fit to this scheme with his mobility. And then with Gray Zabel, I know that they're going to start him out at left guard, but I don't think that means that by game one, it would not shock me at all if by game one we come to find that Zabel's your starting center. I know that that's going to maybe disappoint some Seahawks fans if that was to turn out to become the case, but it wouldn't blow me away if that was the way that this played out. So it's kind of a more than just being a two-man race on this, Jeffrey. It's like a three-man race when it comes to the centers right now. And I'm not really sure if I can put my money on one or the other. Oluwatimi's not quite a fit physically to the system and what he can do. Sundell's a guy we just don't, big question mark. We don't really know what we have in him. Undrafted guy, you would think a little bit for a reason, but really good mobility and fits purely to the scheme. And then with Zabel, can he be a left guard or does he just have to get kicked into center? And that's really just going to be his natural position. He'll be good somewhere, wherever he does end up settling into. But I think that there is still a real big question. A lot of people I've talked to that are really smart NFL-minded people and offline and just having some discussions about Zabel in general terms are pretty succinct in feeling like he's a guy that eventually does slide into center when it's all said and done. That's his position. But it is a bit of a TBD right now. Jeffrey is just not sure as to which way this is going to roll on that one. There's too many question marks. But I will say that I don't think the snapping of center or the muffed punt man is going to be a problem this year. Last year, they got cute with it with D. Williams, a guy that was a rookie trying to go out there and do it rather than going with some more certainty and a guy that was really smooth with it. I know D. Williams had done it in college, but there's no way you're watching D. Williams on a practice field catching punts going, he's comfortable with it. There's no way he's super comfortable with it on a practice field, and then you've got him out there on game day and he looks like a peewee footballer trying to catch a punt for the first time. I don't buy that. They had to have seen some of this was problematic. I think they just wanted to go cheaper and lighter on that position last year, and we're trying to just hope they could get through it. I don't think they're going to make the same mistake that way, and Horton's a better punt returner than D. Williams is. He is. He just is. So I wish I'd give you more certain responses on that, Jeffrey. I'm not sure on kind of all those ones a little bit. I'm a little bit up in our Horton one I feel confident on, but the center one, I don't have any idea on that one. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, Garth. Says, you got to get your brother to be a colored commentator on Hawks games this season. You two work well together. Well, thank you, Garth. I would love to do it. I have been trying to talk him into doing that during the season. The issue for my brother is that he is a married man with two very young kids at home. So there is a lot of active parenting that they're in the process of needing to undertake. And so he doesn't always have that time there on Sundays to kind of break free, as he's kind of always, two real young kids. So he's running left and right, head spinning most of the time. But I'm trying to pull him in on that. I'm trying to get him in on it. I'd like to do that, get him in here at the very least producing for me on game days. I think that'd be cool, having him man the mixer board, and that'd be fun. I'd love to be able to do it. But yeah, I got to be able to. He's got to break away. Got to give him some time there, Garth, as he's just super busy guy. Hopefully we get him in here though. But I agree. I think we'd work real well together. Seth says the snapping issues were from Connor Williams. Olu did fine once he took over and should be the starter. He probably will be. There were a couple of snaps from Olu too, I will say on that, but it was mainly a Connor problem. That's for sure. Yeah, there's zero risk in the Darnold contract. I agree with that, Seth. I think that they did a good job of finding a guy that's, it's a placeholder. It's a bit of a bridge. You didn't overspend for the bridge. You've given yourself some potential with 2025. So it's not just on a Drew Lock and Jalen Milroe. Like if that was the situation and we're looking at those two guys as our possibility this year, there doesn't look like any kind of real opportunity or chance for this team to take a step forward and be a contender this year. You go, man, that's going to fail 8 ways from Sunday. But getting Darnold in here at the price you did gave you some solidity there to step back and go, okay, now you've got an opportunity here to actually do something this year. It's got to have a lot of things break right. The offensive line's got to improve. Guys, the youngsters have got to develop. You got to get some difference makers rising to the surface here a little bit. There's some things that have to happen to make it go. But you made sure that the quarterback position wasn't going to be something that was completely tanked, so that pulled everything else down around it if you had those good things clicking into place. If all of that happened and you got the eclipse, you've got the one part that you made sure wasn't going to be the thing that destroyed all of that at that point, which I really do appreciate. Dogzilla says the interior offensive line turning into solid run pass blockers simply because of new coaches seems like a pipe dream. I agree with you on that, Dogzilla, and that I'm a little reticent on this to really buy into this 100% on thinking that this is just whenever you get into the NFL in any situation, when you're describing a player or you're describing a team or you're describing a system or you're describing when things are going right or when they're going wrong, if you're ever just trying to point at one individual thing and say, this is it right here, it's sort of like, this is the bad guy here. This is all of the reason this stuff's happening. That's not the way the NFL works and football works. It tends to be complicated and that there tends to be a variety of reasons that things happen. And the team has really kind of concisely told us this offseason that they do feel like it's really that. And maybe they'll be proven true on this, but to me, it felt like a bit of a both Dogzilla, where it was both the talent and it was the coaching, and not one or the other, or not one that was so much significantly over the top of the other that you could just ignore this other one and it's just deal with this thing. But we'll see, as they've been very, very confident that this is the intrinsic problem that was going on with the offensive line. I'm with you though. I'm a little bit reticent. Gibson says, I love the Hawks, but honestly, I'm not happy about the Darnold move. I hope I'm wrong and it works out. I do as well. I wanted the step back this offseason, Gibson, and they took the step back in so many different ways. You didn't pay the DK, you didn't pay the Geno money, you didn't go crazy out there and put a bunch of contract extensions out there. You understood you were a little bit tight from a cap standpoint of things, that there was some work that needed to be done. I wouldn't have minded if they necessarily had gone all in on just not spending a lot of money on quarterback and just looking to roll money over from this year and turn this into 2026. But I understand why they didn't. And I understand why people like yourself might not be as much in on that Darnold thing, because there is a little bit of a cost to it. It wasn't completely cheap, and you could have just really bought into that turn it over process of things. But, I get why they did what they did with it. And we'll see. Maybe there's a chance it can work out with him, and then it does click into place and he takes that big step forward that Geno was able to take after a certain amount of time period. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, Garth. He says, Hawk fans treat Jay Harbaugh like Belichick's girlfriend. Stop it. Yeah, Jay got beat up a little bit. I think the issue with Jay comes into you didn't move. Yeah, the D. Williams issue popped up, and that thing showed up in week 1, where you go, okay, get this guy out of here. I mean, I was talking about week 1, like, we can't continue with this. You could just see he wasn't comfortable back there fielding punts. But then there was there was the kick return, I think last year you had for a touchdown. There was the fumbles on the kickoffs. There was not a really good job of defending the kickoffs as well, allowing some good kick returns. And this is, I think, coming on the heels, Garth, of Larry Izzo being in here. And Larry Izzo had that group running like a well-oiled machine. And so you go, man, come on, Jay, don't take something that was working great like a Rolex watch and throw it on the floor and step on it a little bit. But he wasn't horrible. It was a little bit of a step back, Garth, from where it was the prior year under Izzo. And there was a couple different things that showed up that were kind of disconcerting within that. But hopefully he can improve this year, because Harbaugh is going to come much more to a center stage here this year as a coach, as a special teams coach, for one real major rule change in particular that we're going to cover here soon, that could put the spotlight a little bit more hardly on him for both either the good or the bad, and how he reacts to it and how he adjusts to that. I don't think that we did necessarily a great job with the new kickoff rule and always maximizing that last year and finding ways to, take advantage of it a little bit. Hopefully he's got some more wrinkles that he's developed this offseason to kind of build into it. But I like that. Jay Harbaugh getting treated by the Hawks fan base like Belichick's girlfriend. Boy, she's a live wire, isn't she, Garth? Goodness. Bill out there trying to live his best life at the end, I guess, huh? That says Grubb did 0 to help out a struggling O-line, though. Predictable play calling with 90% in shotgun and passing. Super easy for defenses to play against. Correct, yeah. I think that stuff is a valid part of it. And that's part of where I'm open to, while I'm a little bit skeptical about this sort of being the patsy for everything, being it's the coaching on the offensive line, it's the play calling on the offensive line. I can't deny that is a big part of what I saw too from them, and the predictability and how they ran it. I think there was the thing of, if they were under center, that they never ran really play action under center. It was going to be a handoff if it was going under center. So just, it was very predictable in a variety of different ways. And that's not going to make it easy on your offense, especially when you're so pass happy. In addition to that, Seth, like you say, you're 90% in the shotgun, but then you're passing at such a high 70% rate. Now you're also just removing the threat of the run in general, where defenses are like, look, we're just going to pin our ears back and go. And you get to a place where you can almost make it impossible for offensive lines to pass protect or run block, for that matter, if the predictability works in that way too, in those kind of situations. So it is possible on this one. I don't want to undersell that there isn't a chance this could be the big explanation for why things did struggle so much in that way on that offensive line last year. Just that in recent history in the NFL, when you do kind of try to just pinpoint to the one thing on that, and then just lock in on that one thing, you end up coming to find that there's a more supplemental reasons as to why the issue was a problem. How things get to be a big problem is there tends to be a couple things to cause it rather than just one. Richard says, visualize 160 run yards a game. Kubiak's got a lot to work with, and this wasn't thrown together last-minute coaching staff this year. True enough. This is a great pairing of a coaching staff for the Mike McDonald defense in addition to that, Richard, I would say. And you are going to run the ball this year. You're going to be committed to running the ball this year. And that speaks to a little bit of what Seth was talking about above you there, which is just that you had a glaring lack of commitment last year in your willingness to get out there and tote the rock. And Grubb wanted to throw. He wanted to pass. He was definitely one of those archetype offensive coordinators that just kind of ran for show, throw to go. And in the NFL, and especially right now in the NFL where it's at with the running game and how important it is, you've got to run the ball. You've got to remain balanced. Especially these teams in these cover two shell looks, the lighter boxes, you've got to have the commitment to stick in with that type of stuff. It's good to see you, Max. Thank you for checking out the stream today. Spaces, we've been playing average football before Grubb was hired. So now what? It's true. Line problems did predate Grubb. I think that the people that would point to a little bit of Grubb being the issue on this one, Space, would also say, yeah, but those were also bad coordinators too. Specifically, a guy like Waldron, who's getting drugged this week by the Caleb Williams quotes and all of that. And we knew this about Waldron anyway, but you just had two really bad, not average, not, milquetoast, not slightly good. You've had two really atrocious, bad offensive coordinators in here back to back. And I don't think that I'm going out on the end of the branch on that one by saying that was the way that it was. So hopefully you're hoping here, and I think it's not hopefully. This isn't one where there's less guesswork on this. You had guesswork with Waldron because he had never coordinated. You had guesswork with Grubb because he had never coordinated in the NFL level. Kubiak, with his father's background, with being in the NFL for so long, with having success in multiple different places as an offensive coordinator, you got much more here that you know what you're getting than you had prior, and that should then embolden much more than chances for success. Seth says, I really hope if Kubiak works out that he doesn't leave immediately. I do too. Yeah, it would suck, goes out there and everything gets kind of finally turned around, and now he's taking that whole coaching staff with him after a year. That would be brutal. It is obviously part of his plan, I'm sure, that he wants to eventually become a head coach, and that this is what you got to deal with if you get the successful offensive coordinator, is that you have to, you got to play this game a little bit with it. But it'd be nice to at least get the 2 years out of him with that, maybe a Super Bowl run before he does move on in that way. It's the tough part about the NFL. Richard says, don't remind me about Waldron. Yeah, Caleb didn't want to go to Chicago and had no confidence in Waldron. I get it, man. He was a tough, brutal coordinator. He really was. Boy, was he ever. Jail says our play calling's been bad since Shoddy left. Exactly, Jail. I mean, it's just both Waldron and Grubb were just bad in a variety of different ways. The sequencing of play callings, their commitment to run, their commitment to pre-snap motion, their utilization of DK and getting the most out of him, not being so simplified in what you're doing and so easy to read for defenses. A lot of things that they had are very, very much in similar terms. Both of them did. And just the offenses that were kind of in general counterintuitive. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Usually failing offensive coordinators, you can at least see what they're trying to accomplish, what they're trying to set up, how they're trying to get defenses off guard. With Waldron and with Grubb, there were just times to me where it was just you're throwing darts at a board with your play calls. How about this? How about, okay, that didn't work. How about that? That didn't work. Okay, let's try maybe over there. Versus, the defense is calling, this kind of style of coverage. Let's go after that. Oh, we're getting him in base a lot. Let's go over to here to this. You can feel a little bit of what they're trying to kind of whack down a bit. Not with these two guys. Just everything was just sort of just pulling a play call out of a hat. What's the next play call? Okay, grab another one. What's the next play call? It wouldn't have surprised me if we literally came to find it was something like that. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for another $5 donation. And Jeffrey, Garth, thank you guys as well for being members of the channel. I really do appreciate it. Jeffrey says, I want our offense to be good, but not so good we immediately lose our offensive coordinator. I won't believe in this offensive line until I see it week 1 and Sam don't see ghosts. No ghosts for Sam. No Caspers out there on the field for him. And I hope that this is not a one-year wonder thing with Kubiak, because it would suck that you gone through such a cool process of being able to bring this guy in and now he takes and everything clicks in and you're a top 10 offense and then he's right out the door a year from now. I think the one thing that will work in your favor of that, at least at that point, if it does go down, it's not ideal, is that then you can come to the other side of it, Jeffrey, and you can say, okay, you lost your coordinator, but you got confirmation. Like we've been scuttling and searching through for years how to get an offensive line right and to find the right offensive footing and rhythm to get ourselves to just a state where we're not having some part of the offense that's got kind of a league worst kind of aspect of what's rolling along with it, be it how they are on third downs or how the offensive line's blocking, be it in run or pass protection. So one thing this would allow us to do would be able to get to the other side of this and be like, you lose Kubiak, but Kubiak coming in and getting you successful does tell you that it was the coaching, that it is so much more now important about us looking at the next offensive coordinator and making sure we find that guy that's not a guy that we're guessing on or that we're going to, have to hope he can bring it together and learn on the job. But you got somebody who's done it before, who knows what they're doing, who's a smart mind. And then the good part about that too as well, of course, is then if Kubiak goes, you're a top 10 offense, you got to go look for another offensive coordinator. You're going to be kind of a cool landing spot, aren't you? If there's a coach out there that's been fired, like a Shane Steichen type, let's say, out there with the Colts, and that doesn't work and he's let go now, he's got to go back to being an offensive coordinator. Does that kind of guy look really good to you then? And you look really good to him as a landing spot where he's like, look, I can go there and find instant success because their offense is so stacked. They got such a good coaching staff. Their defense is rolling. Everything's good. So I'm going to go there. I've got 5 job offers, but I'm going to take the Seattle offer because that's the one that puts me in the best position for success again, and then to go back and get another head coaching job at some point down the line. So there is a little bit of a silver lining to that situation if it does play out to where Kubiak's that good and then leaves after a year. But to your point on that, Jeffrey, it's not ideal. And when it comes to the offensive line, and you'll believe it when you see it, I'm going to be the same way on this. I'm hopeful with it. I'm a little bit skeptical, a little bit of it just being that this is the whole reason and nothing but the reason. So help you God. I don't know if it's all of that reason of just the coaching and play calling. It might turn out to be. And I hope it is. I hope it is. Because if it is, then that's going to be so much more immediate returns that Kubiak is going to be able to bring. That's going to be so much more than the chances for this team to be good and good really quick. So I would love to see it be that case if it can. But like you say, I need to see by week 1. I want to see a week 1 offensive line that's functional. I want to see a week 1 offensive line that's not a sieve. I want to see a week 1 offensive line that doesn't have early penetration into the backfield where our running backs are having to salsa dance and do the mambo and do the little thing where you got to go under the line, when you're trying to make sure you don't hit the little stick and you go underneath it. I don't want them doing all of that stuff in the backfield before they even got past the line of scrimmage. And let's see if that's what we get in week 1 from that. Because remember last year, Jeffrey, even in that Denver game from the jump, you had instantaneous pressure on Geno Smith's back in that game. I think the back-to-back first 2 snaps give you a dead-on indicator of, oh my gosh, we better strap in. It's going to be a rough season for this offensive line. So you will get I think you'll get a pretty quick indicator here right off the jump on that one of which way it will go, Jeffrey. But until you see it, you got to have it prove it. And I'm with you on that. You got to prove it to me. Don't tell me, show me. And that's what we want to see now. Richard says, if Kubiak leaves, it's good news this year. NFC AFC Championship OCs go to Chicago and Cleveland. Oh, there we go. JL says you got to know what you're doing if you want to be successful with the dodgy O-line. You have to know your players very well. You do. You do. Minimize the things that they don't do good. Maximize the things that they do great. Try to not put them in a pickle of a situation. You know, you get a guy who struggles against twitchy edge rushers. Get that guy help. So the part that does stand out to me was sometimes the two coaches we've had here through the last couple of years in Waldron and in Grubb, that they've also, in addition to a variety of things that they didn't do well, they did a very bad job at getting their offensive line help, at getting those mismatches that your guys would struggle in and finding them some resolution in there. I mean, Waldron, maybe it was a Carroll mandate, much like the prior guys that had come through and Schottenheimer and whatnot, it would not double team Aaron Donald. Just would not do it. And then he destroyed Geno Smith 2 different separate times. So, you know, that's another part where smart offensive coordinators are going to get a little bit more help for their offensive lines. They're going to get that chip block in there. They're going to get that double team in there at times. And hopefully that's another spot that you see a little bit better and more improvement from Kubiak, which you will. I've seen that on the tape there with the Saints. He's got that stuff built in way more. He'll take his fullback at times, and the fullback becomes the pass protector, helper. You know, where do you need me? I'll chip over here. I'll lean and help out the center here on the one tech if I've got a one-on-one going on there. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Garth, what I don't trust about Kubiak is he thought highly of the Carr brothers. Yeah, great guys, but come on. Indeed, you got his dad with you got his dad with David Carr back in the day, and I don't know, was he? Let me look at something here. So 2006, you had Gary Kubiak there. Okay. So yeah, Kubiak, David Carr was 2002, and then Gary Kubiak came in there in 2006. So, you know, David had already been there for 4 years. He was already seeing ghosts. He was already a shell of himself. And, you know, when it comes to Kubiak going to the Saints last year, Garth, you know, he went to the Saints. I know you're kind of joking in your comment a little bit, so you're being half serious. But he did go to the Saints. You know, he had to go to where he had a job offer, you know, and that there's only so many jobs out there that you can go get. He hadn't been a coordinator then since his Minnesota days. So he was successful with Minnesota in like 2021, right? But he'd had to wait a couple of years now. There might not have been 3 or 4 offers on the table where it's like, do you want to take the Saints or the Saints? Or you want to go back and be a passing game coordinator and for the Niners and a run game coordinator, whatever, you know? Well, I need to get back and coordinate. I need to go back and be an OC. So I don't think it was as much he was signing up for, you know, the Carr experience there, Garth, as much as it was that he was just wanting to get that OC job again and show his mettle and what he could do. And then you sometimes as a coordinator just got to take the jobs that are available to you. And you don't always get the best of options out there for what you want to really, you know, pick through. Arthur Smith was a guy that we looked at last year, and that was a guy that I think probably wanted to come here, but he wasn't as sure about what we were doing with our head coaching situation, and he wanted to get the job solidified for himself, having just lost his head coaching job. There were only so many potential jobs out there that would take him, so, you know, he kind of went to the Steelers and took what he could kind of go get out there. I don't think that was his necessarily ideal landing spot as much as it was a landing spot. And, yeah, I just don't think they've got as much of the option stuff out there for those coordinators. They've got to kind of get while the getting's good and kind of take what they can find a little bit. But, yeah, maybe at least we got a little bit of faith, Garth. He didn't try to go make some trade for Carr this offseason, right? Didn't try to go back to front office and be like, Sam Darnold, you got to go get Derek Carr. You're talking about Sam Darnold. You might as well just go get Derek. What's the difference? Something like that, you know, Garth. Something like that. Seth, I love these O-line guys raised on farms like Zabel and Campbell. Campbell saying he's willing to fight and die to protect Drake May. I felt that. You got to have that kind of mentality as an offensive lineman. You know, if you want to be a good one, a really good one, you've got to have that feeling of like, my life is on the line to keep this quarterback protected. First, I'd like to try to stay in front of my guy. It's a little bit of a different mentality, right? One's hungry, one's fierce. Another one's going to be just happy to get the job done. And there are plenty of guys in the NFL as offensive linemen, highly talented, who are missing a bit of that dog, who are just happy to go and get the job done. They're waiting for the whistle to blow so they can go back to the huddle and get through this game. And then those guys that love the sport, love what they do, passionate about it, and play with that passion. And both of these two guys are absolutely guys that are cut from that cloth, I would say for sure. Very much so. Well said, Seth. Richard, Bannon says the pre-draft O-line is already good and the assistant coaches make the O-line gel. Amen. Yeah. They brought in not just one or two guys. It ain't just Kubiak. It's a couple of different offensive guru type guys they brought in here, Richard. And as much as we've necessarily hammered, and rightfully so, John Schneider through the years in not putting the proper resources into the offensive line and not really dedicating what needs to be dedicated to make the group right, you have done a better job in recent years of adding the draft picks. You got a top 10 first-round pick left tackle out there. You got a third-round pick in Abraham Lucas that can sometimes play like a first-round pick. You've taken a first-round pick now on Gray Zabel. So I don't know the last time that we can go back in John Schneider's history and say that we've got, probably back in initially when you had Carpenter and you had Okung, where you can say that you've got 3 first-rounders on your offensive line. That's very impressive. Or at least you've got 2 first-rounders. You've got a couple of third-rounders in there now. So you're putting a little bit more. I still would like to see us spend a little bit more on the line, but you certainly have come significantly forward as far as how much you're putting from the draft, and especially good draft resources to the line. That's for sure. Garth says Kubiak wasn't that good last season. It's kind of a tale between two seasons there, Garth. You got to chop it up with Kubiak between the first about 5, 6, 7 games there and then through the back half of the schedule because the team became decimated by injuries. He lost his line. You lost Chris Olave. Kamara was beat up and injured very early on into the year. Carr obviously wasn't able to make it through but like 6 games or so, 7 games. And so then you're going to Spencer Rattler. You're going to backup offensive linemen. You don't have very dynamic skill position players on the outside to throw to. No more Kamara, or at least a very heavily reduced Kamara. And you throw that into the wash and you come out, and I don't know if there's any offensive coordinator that would have been able to succeed in that environment at that point. But early on in the year, Garth, through those first 6 or 7 games, he had every single member of that offensive line playing at a career best level. He had Carr playing efficiently. They're putting up 40 burgers on the board. So it was really, when he had it healthy, it was really, really good. But when they got kind of destroyed by injuries, it was not good necessarily. It was pretty bad at that point. But I don't think there would be any OCs that were going to make anything happen with that offense as it was constructed after those injuries went down. Max says the Saints were smoking D's like blunts, but then the weed ran out. Did it ever? Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation, Jeffrey. I think the Raiders' Pete experiment is going to be a disaster. His schemes are just too wildly outdated. That's why we fired him. Still better than usual for them. Indeed, I think for the Raiders program, it's a great hire for them, and that this provides them a level of excitement that's missing from them from any coach that's gone in there going back to Gruden. And they didn't even know they were going to be excited by Gruden because he was such a young, untested guy when they brought him in. But this gives that program a kick to the pants that they absolutely needed. And I agree with you with Coach Carroll in that, at the end with him, as much as anything, that he was not here anymore as a head coach because of those outdated schemes, because of his outdated approach to the offense and the defensive side of the ball. And the key for him to find success with the Raiders, Jeffrey, is going to be whether or not he has finally wrapped his head around that which he would not wrap his head around here in Seattle. Because we know that it wasn't just a matter of it's me as a general fan saying about Pete or you as a general fan saying about Pete that his schemes are outdated, that he needs to update it, that he needs to come along and evolve. Pete himself, as I many times have said before, told us this himself. Told us this 2 years prior to being let go, or the mutual parting of ways. And that was him saying 2 years ago, we're getting stuck in our ways. We need to update this. We need to change our approach. We need to evolve, modernize, and then proceed over the next 2 years to not do that. Now, I say that the place that gives me some confidence on this, Jeffrey, as it stands right now, is they brought Graham in to be the defensive coordinator. That's a smart defensive coordinator mind. He does run typically kind of the Carroll scheme a little bit in most ways of what he does. I think he's a little bit more open to blitzing than Carroll is, a little bit more so, and a little bit more modernized than Carroll is defensively or has been in the past. Now, the key on that one's going to be, can Carroll keep his hands off and let him just coordinate and be a head coach instead of trying to be also a de facto defensive coordinator and an offensive coordinator? That's going to be another big key with Pete. But then when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, likewise on this, I would say, Jeffrey, the Raiders brought in Chip Kelly. And I don't think that Chip Kelly is a hire that Coach Carroll would have made 4 years ago here in Seattle. You know, when you're coming up for the Waldron hire, I don't think you would have been like, Waldron, or maybe we'll go with Chip Kelly. I don't think that would have played out like that at all. I think that him grabbing Chip Kelly and bringing him in is a little bit of an acknowledgement that I've got to update my offense. So I'm reading a little bit between the lines on this one with Pete, and that we may come to find that old habits die hard, and that once we get to the season and it's live fire, that he slides back into having those fingers and all the pies across the board, offense and defense, and telling them kind of what to do. But that's going to be as much the key, I think, for Pete finding success there with the Raiders. He is not an old coach in that he's old-minded and that he can't motivate a team or create the synergy that you need for a team to be able to lock it in and go become potentially a winning program. It's about whether or not he's going to update his schemes in the way that they need to be updated, modernize in the way they need to be updated in order to find that success. And that was the bridge that he would not cross in Seattle. That was the one that he would dig his heels in and say, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But maybe some signs there with Las Vegas. He's showing some willingness. Richard says, I feel sorry for the Aints broke and ain't a good quarterback. Ain't got a quarterback. I do too. It's depressing too. Tyler Shock is now going to be the future of that team. It's just a team that just can't do what you need to do, which is eventually come through and stop bleeding money every year, stop being 50 million over the cap, reset this thing. And I don't know why there's so many organizations in this sport that sometimes are so fearful about hitting a little bit of a reset button. You've not been successful for years. It's been a long time since you guys won the Super Bowl. Drew Brees is long gone. Sean Payton, long gone. Reset this thing. You've gone through multiple coaches over now since you moved on from Payton. Reset this thing. But we see with the Saints every single year, they sort of talk themselves into it somehow or another. Talk themselves into it. Yeah, you feel bad about that fan base because it's not getting cleaned up necessarily anytime soon on that angle of things. Which is, I sort of feel sorry for the, oh, sorry, I read that. Who were we missing late in the season? Early, but not late. I think you're talking to him. Garth, thank you for another $5, man. I appreciate the donation, Garth, and all of your support to the channel, brother. I take Darnold over any of the Carr quarterbacks till the end of my days. I would too, Garth, quite frankly. I kind of feel like with Derek Carr, I don't know, I never want to question any football player's toughness, but I do feel like with Derek through the years and all of the injuries that he was like, I don't know if he's a guy that's got that level of toughness that he'll play through injury on. There's some of these guys that just sort of strike me as guys of like, I got a hangnail. I need to be out this week, coach. I don't know if for sure. I don't say this with proof positivity, Garth, but I need my quarterbacks tough. And the one thing about Darnold, do you remember him out last year, Garth, is that walking into that Seahawks game that he beat us at home, he was dealing with a dodgy calf during the whole year. If you watch him in that game, he's actually limping on the calf throughout the football game. So when it comes to Darnold and his toughness and his ability on that side of things, and whether or not, he's a guy that'll play through those kind of injuries that maybe a Carr brother wouldn't. Yeah, I think he's a former linebacker, of course, right? Somewhat new to the quarterback position being Darnold. He's a football player in that way. He can take the bruises. He can take the battering. He'll come back and he's not going to be scared of that, and he'll come out there and play. So I just, that alone part of it for me, Garth, not to mention that Darnold's a more talented player. Got a better arm. He's got more mobility than either Carr brother does, So that's another part of it. Yeah, I'm with you 100% there, Garth. I'd be the same. I'd be the same way if I had to pick. Same way. Garth says, Brando, you realize you're simping for Kubiak? Stop it. I've been zipping through Kubiak all off season, Garth. I mean, when everybody was asking me who was the coordinator that I wanted, I didn't have a 5, 6, 7 names, man. So when it comes to this, I'm not on the Kubiak boat here post hiring. This was the guy for me when he was, for the names that were out there. I didn't have 5 names. I had 1 name I wanted, and that was Kubiak. And for all that he's bringing to the table, and that you're getting more of a certain offensive coordinator. You're getting a guy with a track record of success in doing it. He's not going to have to learn on the job. You're getting a guy with an offense that fits very good to the stadium and what you need to do in the stadium to work, specifically his dedication to running the football. I think it's a great system to go at this cover 2 shell system now that's proliferating through the NFL, and the lighter boxes and that commitment to then running the ball. The coaches that he could bring in, and just the tendrils of connectivity between really valid, legitimate other positional coaches throughout the league to build that staff a little bit better around him. I thought it was all just a home run every which way around on this one. And again, it's not just Garth, what Kubiak did there with the Saints. You got to go also look back at what Kubiak did as an offensive coordinator with the Vikings, because he's a really good coordinator with the Minnesota Vikings too, as well, in his very first stop as an OC. So it's a combination of both of those 2 items that have me on board with him. Century Seahawk, is the media trying to hype us up too much on Jalen? Don't get me wrong. I see the big upside, but it's almost like they're selling him to us. Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of that at play, Century Seahawk. I mean, there's just this sort of thing that I think is, and I understand where it comes from, and that you feel like if a guy can just work on something, he should be able to get better. A guy just can have the dedication and the work ethic. And when it comes to a guy like Milroe, everything that we hear about him is that he's got all the work ethic in the world, that's not going to be any part of him that is going to be lacking in the least. It does come down to me, the little bit of the age-old question of, is there certain skill sets a quarterback either has or does not have? Is there things in his bag that are part of who he is that can't really grow, and he's either got it or don't? Or are those things that can be grown? And maybe there are things that can be grown. But I do think that there is, when I watch the discussion on Jalen Milroe and talk about him, there is much more of just this locking in on this upside versus how far away he is from that upside versus some of the deficiencies within his game that stand out in a really, really major way. And so I'm trying at times to, bite my tongue a little bit with it, because I just feel like there's so many that are so effusive and over the moon with him. And it just, you feel like the guy being the Captain Buzzkill a little bit on this one. But I'm really, as much as ever, on the Jalen thing. Not as much with a lot of confidence that he's going to get to that upside. I just don't. And I'm not a fan of doing the 2 quarterback thing this year, which we've gotten confirmation of now, that they're going to flip these guys out and we're going to get 8 to 10% of the snaps going to Jalen Milroe now. And I'm not a fan of that either. So it's, there's some stuff with this that it's, I think there's a little bit of that going on, Century Seahawk. He's got a lot of talent, and maybe the work ethic will be enough to bring him there. I don't have much of a track record of history of guys like this that have this far to go, even with the major upside, who then are able to go reach that upside. You much more end up, by the rule of thumb, getting stuck on the other end of that scale of things as far as the development goes. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, Garth. I really appreciate you for that. That back they drafted in Vegas is a beast. Jay Harbaugh could work wonders with him on special teams. Oh man, could you just imagine Ashton Genty as a kick returner? Good Lord, look out. Good Lord. You kind of maybe see this occasionally, Garth, this year, because with the kicks in the back of the end zone, now we're going to be brought out to the 35-yard line. So is this going to now push teams to do a lot more of kicking the ball to the 2, the 3, the 4-yard line and force these teams to have to return it? And if that's the case, will you see at times, Garth, I know you're kind of joking a bit in your post, but will you maybe see at times teams put back their super dynamic guy back there to return those kickoffs if they need a play, just give him a chance with the touch, so to speak, a little bit. Could you do that with a guy like a Kenneth Walker, for instance? I wouldn't be against it occasionally throwing it out there. I mean, you're talking about now the potential of really being able to go out and take a ball up around the 40, 45, 50-yard line. And what a difference that makes as far as field position goes. But Genty is great. And I felt really validated a little bit in this draft, Garth, with two guys in particular, well, three guys in particular that a lot of the chat kind of would sometimes, especially early in the draft process, would be like, you're crazy, you're out of your mind. Where I'm going like, look, Genty's going to go top 10. No, he won't. He's 5'8". There's no way he's going to go. He's going top 10, I'm telling you, folks. And I said the same thing, of course, about Ted Arroyo and McMillan. I said, this is an easy evaluation. This is Mike Evans 2.0. NFL teams are going to realize this. I know all the fans are like, oh, he takes routes off, and oh, he's did this, and oh, he did. But then it all got out settled in the wash, and the kid was a really high pick. And same thing with Kenneth Grant. So Genty was a real easy evaluation. Running backs like this don't come around very often. Easy to understand why Carroll was going to take him too, because Carroll loves himself running backs. But Genty's going to be a great player for them. He's going to be a difference maker at the running back position, and the Raiders have done a good job up ahead of selecting him of actually starting to solidify some of their offensive line and get that better put together, where it's at times been a complete mess in recent years out there, Garth. But yeah, Jay would love to have himself some Genty return work going. You better believe that. Randy Roberts' defense was improved beyond expectations, top 5 end of year while playing the toughest offensive schedule, and everyone is back. Amen, man. All starters returned, and you've added guys like Nick Emawari and DeMarcus Lawrence, and hopefully you get a healthy Uchenna Nwosu back this year. All of those things are going to aid in making this defense better, and hopefully this defense can kind of carry things a little bit for you. Carry a bit of that load, especially if you can run the ball well on the other side of it. It's an easy way to see how you can generate a lot of wins through the course of the year. Is defense top 5, offense finding the running game, special teams playing solidly. You can go out there and get yourself that 10, 11, 12 wins. Garth, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you for all of your support today, Garth. And I hope you have a great weekend tonight. Garth says, okay, I'll trust the Kubiak hiring, knowing we have Harbaugh blood in this system. There we go, man. It's all about the lineage, Garth. You get a little bit from a Kubiak, you get a little bit from a Harbaugh. If we could pull from the Holmgren bloodline and fit that into this, that would just be even better at that point. But this is going to be a good hire, man. I would not blow smoke up your butt on this one. I'm a guy that I was okay with Waldron. I kind of understood it. Didn't love the hire. Grubb didn't love the hire. Understood it. Was open to it being successful and working. This is one much more that you understand why this is going to be successful, and that this is not you just sort of hoping and rolling the dice. This is you looking at track record. This is you smartly going through the coaches as they did, because that's another part of this, Garth, is that they didn't just, land on Kubiak and say, that's our guy, let's just grab him. They went through a variety of different candidates to try to find what was going to be the right fit, what was going to be the right match on this one. And on this, I think you've done a really good job. When I go back through the last few coordinators we've hired here, Garth, Jeremy Bates, Bevel, Schottenheimer, Waldron, Grubb, Kubiak coming in with his background and his pedigree far surpasses all of those guys. Far surpasses all of those guys and what they had on their resume walking in the door. So by far the best offensive coordinator hire for us in 15 years. And that's why I've got so much confidence in this. And that's why I'm so much ready to go and be just say this guy's is gonna bring the goods on this. Because I've seen a lot of coordinators come through in recent years and we're going, you hired Bevel on the end of Jeremy Bates because Bates wasn't running the offense the way Carroll wanted to run it. So even there, you had Carroll starting that process of taking guys for his coordinating roles who were going to fit to what he told them to do, not because they were so dynamically minded, not because they were such great offensive coordinators who were going to unleash an incredible attack on defenses, because they were going to be company men and do what Coach Carroll wanted to see done. Century Seahawk, thanks, Brando. Appreciate the input. Anytime, Century Seahawk. My pleasure, man. It's a great question. Great question. And Garth, thank you again, man, for all the donos today. I appreciate you for that, bro. Randy says the O-line will be improved due to balanced play calling, commitment to the run, proven coaching, and a scheme that better fits our personnel. 100%, man. 100%. Great points all the way around, and that will absolutely be part of what brings this thing forward just in itself. Just in itself. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $10 donation, Jeffrey. One of the huge things about addressing the center position on the offensive line in a major way this offseason is Kubiak calls his protections out from the center position. This can't be done just by anyone. No, you need the vocal guy. You need the leader to come from the center position in this offense. To your point on that, Jeffrey, when you go back to the Mike Holmgren West Coast offenses that worked in a very similar way about how protections were going to be called, your center there had to be the guy that called it. And so we had Robbie Tobeck at that time, a little bit of an undersized center, really smart lunch pail guy, but a guy that was the leader of that offensive line. On an offensive line that had Hall of Famers in Walter Jones and in Steve Hutchinson, it was Tobeck. It was Tobeck that everybody looked towards and making the calls and getting people in the right place. And so that's back to your point on that. That's why that then becomes so very vitally important. I think the nice part about this, if you just end up rolling with Oluwatimi as kind of your floor guy, that's just your kind of default guy that becomes, is at least Oluwatimi has also done a lot of that going back to his college days. And so he's a very heady player that can be able to pull that stuff off. With Oluwatimi, it's more of the questions about him physically than it is really the questions about him mentally and that side of it and what he can do with that. He's played so much football, has Oluwatimi, that he'll be able to do that quite easy on that side of it. Great point, though, Jeffrey. Great point. And thank you for all your donations today, too, as well. But part of also the reason I wonder a little bit, Jeffrey, is this a little bit of maybe the draw there was Abel. One of the things we hear about Abel is what a great communicator he is, how he helped to get that line on the same page at times out there with North Dakota. And does that end up being a bit of the draw that then ends up pulling him into center? It'll be one of the interesting things to kind of watch for me during training camp is if there is that draw and that pull to eventually have it settle out in that fashion. But you're not wrong in that it's absolutely a vital position on this offensive line, maybe more so than other teams. And as much because that guy's got to handle those protections. You want to take it off the quarterback's back, which I really like to do anyway. I don't like quarterbacks calling out protections because there's already a lot that they have to process there at the line of scrimmage. They're looking at the fronts. They're looking at the secondary pre-snap. They're trying to look for indicators about predeterminations there. You don't want them moving this guy here, moving that guy there. Oh, pick this guy up. You want that center telling that quarterback how the protections are going to roll. So then the quarterback can operate off the protections to execute the play. I'm never a fan of when you got the quarterback out there trying to get it done. It puts too much of the load on the quarterback's shoulders at that point. Just one of the places that Kubiak is smart in understanding that and being purposeful and going to the center with that and saying, okay, you're going to control this. This is on your job to do this. Well said, Jeffrey. Very well said. And thank you, man, for all of your donos. Steven, it would be strange if week 11's Darnold goes down and the brain trust says it's Milrow time. And we all know how football seasons go in the NFL. Yeah, I was talking to this about with EJ Snyder and a couple of other people, and I share your skepticism on this one a little bit, Stephen, because every quarterback, we hear about this in every offseason, and it sounds so nice right after the draft, doesn't it? It just sounds so good. It sounds like a great plan you have in place, and it's going to be a firm plan, and we're going to structure it, and we're going to take our time with this kid, and we're going to slowly bring him along as an advancement and development, understanding he has a long way to go and that we've got to be protective of him in that way. And we can't, it all sounds so well when you're in May and June. And then we get into October and we get into November and an injury happens and you've been watching the great talent on the practice field and some of the highlight stuff you can do on practice field. And you're like, what do we got to lose by just throwing him out there? So I'm with you on this. The kid needs 2 years. The kid needs 2 years to sit. It would be in his benefit. He needs to refine his mechanics. He needs to get better from the neck up. And he's going to need the time to do that. He's got a long way to go. But like you say, Stephen, the draw is always there, and every NFL team goes through this. Colts take Anthony Richardson, and we absolutely understand we need to sit him for the full season. That's the commitment. That's what we're going to do. That lasts like 5 games. And then you're tossing him out there and you're having him running RPO concepts instead of Shane Steichen's offense, and you're going, okay. Because that's what ends up happening then. You're not developing him then. Then you're just going to peel out and dial down your whole playbook. You're going to have to do a rudimentary state. You're going to be running these read option type stuff. And your offense will be lesser because of it. And the guy won't develop as well because of it. Did Robert Griffin develop when Washington threw out the Shanahan offense so that they could instill the Baylor offense? I know the knee thing was eventually the thing that ended up kind of throwing everything off for him. Then they were able to get some dynamic play from Griffin initially. But long term, I don't think it was what was best for him. And that's the draw with these running kind of kitschy quarterbacks with the RPO stuff, is you'll just peel out your playbook. You'll go to the simplified offensive stuff, and you're not bringing those guys along in the way they need to be brought along then. You're not developing them as quarterbacks. You're keeping him as sort of a college quarterback to try to get some value out of him and some productivity out of him, like we're going to do when we run him out there on the 8 to 9 to 10% of the snaps this year. It's going to be all out of RPO kind of stuff, design quarterback kind of reads, that sort of thing, which is fine. But again, we're trying to develop him. That's really the point on this one. And sometimes you have to make a choice of one or the other. Do you want to get productivity out of the guy, or do you want to develop him? Everybody wants to kind of split the difference and ride down the middle lane. It's like you got to sometimes just pick a lane in what you want to do on players, on teams. You can't always do everything everywhere all at once. And that's what a little bit of that is. Sean S., we should all try and be optimistic about the team's future. I really think they're doing a pretty good job of restructuring the team so far. Things take some time. Great point, Sean. Wonderfully put on your part. Certainly something that I've been banging the drum for this offseason. I advocated this offseason for the team to take a bit of a step back so they could take 2 steps forward. It did not mean that they couldn't take the 2 steps forward for 2025. That can happen. That is a possibility, especially because they've done some very smart things to grease the wheels and sped that process along. With that said, when you take a step back, there's sometimes an immediate price to pay for the long-term benefits. That's the whole key with taking a step back, is it's easy to just keep pushing everything 100% hard into the future. Just do everything you can. Just go instead of, let's take a step back. Let's analyze this a little bit. Let's make sure we're doing this smartly and appropriately, and then let's go. And so while it can click in potentially this year in 2025 with this 1 step back for 2 steps approach forward, Sean, it isn't a guarantee. And if it doesn't click in this year and it doesn't take the step forward this year, it doesn't mean that this process has been a failed one. It means that it's going to take some time, back to your point. And something I am a big believer in, and I've been saying all off season a little bit to your point on this, and part of why I've been saying a little bit all off season to fans on this is to set expectations appropriately. People come off a 10-win year last year and they go, okay, well, that means it has to be 12 wins this year. That means it has to be us taking a step forward this year. It might. But because you took steps back, because you didn't sign Geno, because you didn't sign a DK Metcalf, because you didn't try to microwave your offensive line with quick signings out there in free agency, because you've taken a bit of a slower, more patient approach, you're not going to necessarily get immediate returns always on that. It can happen, but it's no guarantee. And if it doesn't happen, the key on this one, Sean, is that then it doesn't mean that things are a failure as it stands right now. It doesn't mean that we should be talking about simply John Schneider on a hot seat at that point. It means you took the step back. The 2 steps forward will come. If it doesn't come in 25, well, I'm not having necessarily, I don't have bulletproof confidence it happens in 25. I do have a lot of confidence that'll click in 2026. The 2026 becomes a lot more of a certainty for me of that. If it hasn't happened in 25, bet your bottom dollar it will lock in 26. Bet your bottom dollar that. So I feel that way too, Sean, and I'm going to be a guy pushing really for patience in the fan base if there aren't those immediate returns this year for that reason. You tangibly took this 1 step back for these 2 steps forward. You didn't just say, damn the torpedoes, all in 2025. Let's spend up all our money. I mean, look, we're sitting on like what, the 5th most amount of cap space right now in the entire NFL. That's not a team going for broke. That's not a team that's robbing for tomorrow, for today. That's a team taking a patient, solid, smart approach that might just take a little bit of time. And that's going to be okay. Jay Gundy, thank you for the $5 donation, Jay Gundy. Good to see you in the house, brother. Appreciate it. Earl inserted in coaching. Should Mike McDonald bring him aboard? Bonus would be somehow pry KJ from the Niners, laughing out loud. It would have been cool to get KJ here versus at the Niners. That one definitely kind of hurt. Unfortunately, I do believe that Mike McDonald was with the Baltimore Ravens. Was he with them in 2000? I think he was with them in 2019 when Earl Thomas was there, Jay, I want to say. And remember with Earl Thomas there with Baltimore, it was a really, really not, it wasn't a good situation out there with Baltimore. Earl was doing a little bit too much freelancing within the defense, and he wasn't sticking enough to what the responsibility was supposed to be on the play. And it got so bad to the point that that Baltimore Ravens team, when he was suspended after there was a fight between him and a teammate at practice, that the whole Baltimore basically team at that point voted for Earl not to return to the team. And that speaks to a little bit of what was probably Earl's attitude a bit at that time. Earl was a really tremendously gifted player. A lot of physical ability, even though he's a little bit of a smaller guy. And those guys don't always make the greatest coaches, especially a guy that, kind of did it his way and was headstrong. And I don't know if that's a guy that's going to be well suited necessarily to now become a coach. It might. I mean, I'm open to it, but I would wonder a little bit too if that Ravens end would color things a little bit for Mike McDonald and his view of it. It's like, look, the guy wasn't coachable as a player, but now he's going to be a good coach. I think that would be probably something Mike McDonald might say on that one. But KJ, I think he's going to be a very good coach in this league. Got D Winters playing really nice last year. That was kind of a developmental 6th round linebacker that they had to get fill in for the guys that tore his Achilles heel in the Super Bowl. And he played pretty well for them. Campbell was all right, but Campbell was kind of shot and done at that end point anyway. But it did hurt KJ going to the Niners. That one kind of sucked a little bit. Didn't like that. Didn't like that at all, Jay Gundy. Hopefully someday we can bring him back. Kind of be interesting to see if KJ eventually can ascend into becoming maybe like a coordinator in a DC. That's definitely something he'd probably like to do. But Earl, I don't know, man. I don't know if Earl's well suited on the coaching front of things. He might be, but I don't know. Spaces Hutchinson's been mentoring Zabel as well. That's good to hear. Can't hurt having a guy like that help you out. Says, let's hope this O-line has enough improvement in the season. Bears did a complete 180 on their O-line and made huge improvements. It'll be telling if JS did enough this offseason. Two different approaches there, right? Bears looking to microwave that thing and bump it quick and get it sped along faster. Seahawks taking a bit of the slower roll approach to it. And we'll see if either of these approaches work, if both work, if neither work, if it's all just a crapshoot there, Seth. But Bears definitely took a little bit of that different road there than we did on that. HHG, thank you for the $2 donation, HHG. We going to do skirmish games this year? We going to do skirmish games this year? I don't know what you mean by skirmish games. Sorry, my man. Skirmish games. You don't have to put a dono on it, HHG. Just put in the comment section what you meant by skirmish games. So it's not ringing any bells there for me. John says, I just love the fact that they doubled down on being a tough running type team when they would have played lip service to that in the past. Drafting a 275-pound fullback in the 5th round is a huge statement. Amen, man. I mean, they're going to run. They got the fullback there. You've got Milroe that's going to be, I think, at times being used as just kind of like a running quarterback back there in the running game, running the RPO kind of stuff with it. You have gotten some guys in here in recent years that have upgraded the talent and your ability to run block better. I think that they're truly committed to it, and they've shown that for sure. John says, can you imagine Jalen Milroe developing, though, and become the Ravens or Eagles? I think that's the exact vision they have for the team, which is why the short-term contract for Darnold. I think that that's kind of what they're hoping can become the case with it. I think there's a lot more reason to have a little bit more hope in what you had with Hurts and much more hope in Lamar Jackson than necessarily where you're at with Milroe on it. But you're hoping to replicate that, that's for sure. And you're right about it too, John. You might end up then looking to use, if it does click in for Milroe and he's able to go and improve, then Darnold becomes potentially a trade piece you can use, and that you move him with a couple years on his contract, you eat the bonus money, and maybe you actually can get some tangible, real return back from him at that point as far as trade capital goes. Yeah, I've kind of thought that's a possibility on this one too, if it plays out in that way. John says, I was thinking the reason they were kind of somber in the first round is because they missed out on Kenneth Grant. I think they did want to get bigger than they would have taken Ratledge. Yeah, I think that when they came to Zabel, they were happy and fine with Zabel, John, but I do feel like if you pressed Schneider, he would have told you that there was probably three or four other guys that they were hoping were going to land at their pick. Michael Williams, Kenneth Grant, Ted Aurora, McMillan, and even Tyler Booker. They said in the press conference, they had Booker higher. I think any of those four guys they would have probably have taken ahead of Zabel, but teams picked smartly this year up ahead of us in the first round, whereas last year, maybe not quite as smartly. Seth K. Aloha. Thank you for the $5 donation, Seth. When's the next NFC West roundtable? Jesse said the Niners would sweep us in his schedule release predictions. I need you to talk shit on that. I will jump all over Jesse and let him know that you're getting us week 1 at home. You ain't beating us week 1 at home in our house. It ain't happening, Jesse. You didn't want this week 1 in our house. You wanted this week 6 in our house. When you can catch us middle of the year, you catch us on a run of 3 games in 15 nights or something like that. That's how you guys wanted to do it. Like you did last year when you got to face us at home. We're in the middle of a hellacious part of our schedule. I think we had like 4 games in 17 days or something stupid like that. So I got us sweeping the Niners, so I'm coming right back at him, Seth. I'm coming right back at Jesse being like, no, we sweep your ass. We're going to be doing an NFC West roundtable next week. We were going to do it this week and it just got pushed. It's going to be a bit of a tier system where we look at the tiers of the division and positional groups and who's got the strongest positional groups and what tiers. There's also going to be a thing we're going to be highlighting, and they're going to try to set up this year for roundtable, is that there's a Thursday night game between the Niners and the Rams in LA. So we're going to try to get all of the NFC West roundtable guys, our Mike out there with AZ Sports and Jesse and Jake, and we're going to try to get us all in the stadium at once there. So they're going to set that up. I think if we get enough donos on the next NFC West roundtable, the roundtable people will set that up for us. And so we'll be doing kind of an on the road kind of thing up in LA, all kind of meeting up there. So I'd love to do that. So hopefully we're going to do that, but it will be this next Tuesday at 6:00. We'll be doing the roundtable and we'll be making a roll, man. Making a roll. Thank you for the donation. Richard says Anthony Bradford, the Bears. We give him a 5th round pick. We give him a 5th round pick too. We're just giving him away, Richard. Or I think you meant we get a 5th round pick back for him. You might do something like that. I've wondered if Bradford might end up being a bit of the odd man out here. And that'd be a way to get a little bit of value back for him if you did. Yeah, we're going to do the joint practices again, Seth. Mike McDonald's a big believer in that. I think, John, that Zabel does end up at center when it's all said and done. Yeah, well, the team is just not athletic enough. John says, did Brando move again? It's a new setup, right? No, I just took off the flag from the background. We got the who's a Medusa here? I got the neon light put in here, John. Just got the new neon light. I've been meaning to get that for a while. Came out really good too. Guy did a really good job on it. John says Jalen Hurts wasn't lauded very much when he came out, right? Especially for his passing when he was barked down. He's definitely was a limited passer to a degree, John, but I think that there's 2 different issues at play with Jalen Milroe and Jalen Hurts. The mechanics wise with Jalen Hurts was a lot cleaner coming out. And there was a lot more of Hurts incrementally getting better as a passer as he went through college. When he went to Lincoln Riley with Oklahoma, he came really majorly forward. Now, when he's going from sort of an Alabama program where there's a lot more of running the ball, not as many of the advanced passing concepts, I think, of what he was getting with Lincoln Riley, he took to those advanced passing concepts really well, and he was able to really become his best self in his final year of college. Whereas, John, when you counter that to Jalen Milroe took a step back this year going from the Saban offense to the spread concept offense. So you didn't get the development in the same way from Milroe that you got from Hurts in the final year with him there. And it is telling if you got that final year, you're not actually taking a step forward, but you actually kind of take a partial step backwards a bit as a player, especially when you keep in mind that the offense became more complicated for him. It asked him to do more things, and in asking him to do more things, wasn't able to be as successful as the prior year. But I'm hopeful for him, and there's a chance there. Yes, HHG will be doing the joint practices, and I'm so in favor of that. I love seeing it, and I'm glad Mike McDonald's willing to do it. I think we did it last year with Tennessee, had a couple of them, and I think it's very beneficial because you just have such limited amount of pad time. There's no more two-a-days. Off-season, you can't wear pads. So there's opportunities to be in pads and replicate game-like situations, not just have you going through the motions or you're just trying to take care of the guy across from you so you're not going as hard as you can. You don't tough yourself up unless you get that callus built up a little bit. And the only way to build up the callus is the good old-fashioned way of just pad on pad, helmet on helmet, striking, being violent. What's up, Captain CT? Rex? Good to see you. John says the neon light's the truth. Thank you, John. I've been looking for one. I found this guy, I was not sure, and he did a great job. Just a great job. I'm going to get, I think, on the right, we're going to move this shot in a little bit, and then I think on the right, I'm going to get a Hawk helmet up on the wall, just kind of posted up that way on the wall at that point. Addicted says if Zabel starts as center with our left guard and right guard starters, yikes. It's going to get a little bit kinky at that point, Addicted, to your point. It is going to get a little bit, if he slides to center, you're going to be a little bit, okay, now how does the rest of this stuff work? I wouldn't be surprised if John does eventually maybe make a trade for a left guard kind of guy if it goes that route and goes to try to find a guy like a Wyatt Teller that can maybe slide to left guard at some point or another for a season. Maybe who has familiarity within the scheme, kind of finds a guy like that somewhere. But that would be a little bit of the concern there. Seth says, I was thinking of that about Riley Mills. He's 6'6". He could definitely add some more weight. He might, Seth. I mean, he's definitely a big guy at 6'6" that can maybe add some of that. I do say that he did come into college at 270. So, he's already thrown 25 pounds on that body. And there is a little bit of me, Seth, that wondered a little bit as you were reading up on the stories of how fast he was adding that weight on his body at Notre Dame, that did the ACL that he tore, is that partially a little bit of that you're carrying a little bit more weight than your body was kind of, capable or used to carrying? And, when you get some of these guys get these torn ACLs, I wonder about that, if they've gotten, their bodies that are carrying 30, 40, 50 pounds a little bit more than they should, for what their knees can kind of deal with, for what their legs can kind of deal with. There's guys that are naturally built to carry 340, and there's some guys that are just naturally built to carry 295 pounds. And that's their top. That's as far as they can kind of take it, even if they're bigger kind of guys a little bit. I don't know this for sure on this one, Seth. I'm not saying I have an absolute certainty with Riley that he couldn't add some more weight. But they're watching the tape with him, it does feel a little bit like he's probably topped out at the amount of weight he can take. Because there is times too with him where he's not always the most balanced, where he does feel like a guy that's carrying a little bit more weight than he's used to, and he can kind of get flopped over and lose his feet and be a little bit out of control at that size. And it just seems like he tried to stack as much as he possibly could out there at college. Dick to Brandon, since you moved to San Diego, haven't you been doing joint practices on a regular basis? Just teasing. So jealous of your move. I love it out here in San Diego, man. It's a nice spot. It's a very nice spot. Purdy got extended. Ooh, we got some breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce Brock Purdy has been extended. That's what the chat was saying. 5-year, $265 million deal. Wow. Wow. It's obviously going to be ancient numbers. $53 million a year. Whoa. $181 million guaranteed. Ooh. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of coin. There you go. 181 guaranteed. 53 million per year. 55 million in new money average over the first 3 years. Oh. Oh. It's a good day to be a Seahawks fan. I look at this deal, you know what I say? Headshot. I look at this deal. I look at this Brock Purdy deal, you know what I say? You blew it! I look at this Brock Purdy deal. Yeah, look at this Brock Purdy deal, you know what I say? Oh my God! I see Brock Purdy making $53 million on average. I look over there at the Niners, and this is what I say. Oh, Billy. Oh, Niners are broke. Niners are going to have no money. Good luck with that one, man. Brock Purdy, just say it out loud. Brock Purdy, $53 million per year. You know what I mean? Just say it out loud. $53 million Brock Purdy a year. Oh. Woo. I guess they had to do it. But this is confirmation too of a lesson learned in giving this kind of deal out to Brock Purdy and those people that say, you know, well, you can stretch it to the fifth year option on quarterbacks that are first round picks. All this stuff is irrelevant. If a guy outperforms his deal through the first 3 years, he's going to get the contract extension. And that's just what's happened here with Brock Purdy. There's no way guys like Tua and Lawrence get their contracts and then you just don't pay Purdy. It's you just can't do it. You don't get away with it. And I cannot look at the Niners right now with their cap situation and go, boy, after this year, when Trent Williams is going to retire, when Kittle's going to be right at the end of the road, when Fred Warner's going to be getting closer to the end of the road, they are going to have one hell of a turnover process to try to get this thing right as they're paying Purdy $53 million a year at the same time. I guess they had to do it, but if I'm a Niner fan today, I don't feel good about this. This would make my gut turn a little bit. Now, these are agent numbers. It's obviously going to be a deal massaged through that looks better for the Niners when the real numbers come out, but it ain't going to be far off of it. It ain't going to be light years off of what's being reported. It ain't going to be cheap. Wow. Wow. $265 million to Brock. $265 million for Brock Purdy. Oh, boy. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, Garth. Appreciate you, brother. I love how the Bosa brothers are big Trump supporters, but neither has got the ring. Couple of wanks, those two. They're definitely wired uniquely there, Garth. The Bosa brothers are. That's for sure. And I'll tell you what, if I was, we got, I think Nick Bosa goes to Buffalo, I got the choice between playing with my brother out in California or having to go out to Buffalo for a couple extra more $1 million. I'll take a couple million less to go play with my brother. I'd have made that choice, Garth, Maybe not chasing rings, but they're out there chasing the money. Of course, you gotta give Nick Bosa some credit where Garth, at least he is going to Buffalo. I mean, he ain't going out to Buffalo for the weather. He's going out there to try to help put them up over the top. That's for sure. But thanks for the donation. And you're all right. Neither does have a ring. Neither does. John says Zabel could definitely be Thuney. What pisses me off is the fact that Darnold retired and we finally draft a guy to handle him. It's true. We never did find the guy that could deal with Darnold. We never did. Hell, we didn't even double team him, John. We wouldn't even commit to that. Seth says, I didn't know that about Seth Riley Mills. Yep. Started out as a defensive end, Seth. So came in as a defensive end, big defensive end, 270, and then they just eventually kept adding on some weight to him there a little bit. Our says, get Jesse on here. Well, we're going to have to. Well, we'll do it definitely before the first game of the year for sure. Seth, did Purdy get extended? You better believe it, man. $53 million. Martin Lawrence, thanks for the $5 donation, Martin. I'm nervous, confident, hopeful, and doubtful all at the same time, and we haven't even gotten to OTAs. Still think we'll be good this season, though. I'm in a similar place, Martin. I'm hopeful for this year. We were talking a few minutes ago about, the taking the step back and the 2 steps forward, and when do those 2 steps forward click into place? When do we get the culmination of that? When do we get the fruits of that starting to show up for us? And your hoping is that it is next year. But like you say, there's a lot of different emotions that can kind of pull at you within that. You got your first time OC. Is an offensive coordinator in NFL history usually as good in their second year? Or are they usually as good in their first year as they're going to be in their second year when they've learned the personnel, when they've, refined down what does and what does not work for where they're at there? Yeah, it tends to take a year. Matt Ryan with Shanahan in the same kind of offense in his first year there with Atlanta. There was a little bit of some back and forth. There was a little bit of some friction at times. Boom. Then by year 2, they're on the same page. The offensive line. You've drafted. You've not bought the parts. You've not gotten certainty in here. It's a little bit more of the question marks. Is that thing ready to come forward? Can the defense take some more steps forward under McDonald? Is Sam Darnold in the year that he gave you last year the new version of Sam Darnold? Or are we going to see back to the old version of Sam Darnold and the guy that does see ghosts in the pocket, the guy that doesn't deal with pressure very well? There's a lot of questions there. Part of why, too, Martin, you got Vegas putting us up at 7.5 wins. They don't know what to think either. The fun part about this is that there's, to me, a wide variance of possibility to this. And that we've had a lot of teams in recent years where we've always known where the floor is at least at. We haven't known where the ceiling is going to be, but we've been pretty confident about where we could see the floor. And this year, we just don't know in full of what we're going to see in totality. But the potential is there. And the ability to step forward in that way and to become that dynamic team into the future is absolutely there too and a real. But both sides are real to the way that this thing could play out. And the middle ground where you're just kind of middling is also a possibility. So I do think we are going to have a good season, Martin. I do like the fact that with all of these question marks that are on this team right now, on a very talented team and a team with a lot of really good parts and pieces that could step forward, is that you are getting to face a little bit of an easier schedule and that you're going to be able to walk through and be able to know that that's the reality of what you're dealing with too. And so that maybe if you are that team still kind of finding some footing, the easier schedule helps you to get kind of over the top into kind of a playoff-like run as that extra little factor to just sort of push you up over the top on that one. But I feel similar, Martin, very similar. Nervous, confident, hopeful, a little bit of doubt at times coming in there too. I swing a little bit all the way around on that in the same way. I think you're seeing things pretty clearly in your reasoning on that process too. Seth K. Aloha, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, bring Jesse on the stream. I need to see his reaction. Well, I think that Jesse's got the normal job during the day. So I think he's out there working and then he's probably going to be trying to go live as soon as he can to react to this. But we'll be talking to Jesse at Tuesday. Tomorrow on Tuesday, we'll get him on, and we'll get him on this offseason if we can again. I know we're going to be doing a link up before the first game of the year, but I'll try to get Jesse on again and get some reaction to his news on this. He's not going to be happy with the news of this one. I can tell you that about Jesse right now, is that there was no part of him that was really excited about the fact that they're going to pay Brock Purdy over $50 million a year this offseason. He really wanted to try to push this decision off a year. And this is a nail. This is a nail into your cap for the next couple of years from the Niners' perspective. And you already had a couple of nails into this coffin and closing down this Super Bowl window. And with the age of the team getting up there, with starting to lose some players into free agency that you'd like to keep, but Dre Greenlaw, Fuwanga, Javarius Ward. I think Ward, they were happy to, at that point, let him go because the skill set wasn't quite where it had been. But you're starting to lose talent. You're starting to not be able to afford certain guys. You're now going to have to rely on some of the youngsters to come in and fill in for parts that you had a lot more solidity at in recent years. And so they're going to feel the pain of this. And Jesse, I don't think, is going to be happy by it, Seth, and knowing him on this, where he's going to say you can't pay Brock Purdy $50 million a year. He's not worth that amount of money. He's earned it, but he ain't worth that amount of money. I think the problem from the Niners' perspective on this comes down to, you want to go to the backup? You want to go to Mac Jones, really? You want to trust in that and think you're not going to take a big step backwards from Purdy at that point? You will. And then the other part of it, some Niner fans probably were hoping that, maybe you can just trade the guy. You don't want to pay him $50 million, but go find a quarterback hungry team that'll pay him the contract, get a pick back, and keep it moving. No one's given a pick for Brock Purdy for just the opportunity to then pay him $50 million a year. He was not going to be anywhere as valuable to any team in the NFL than he was to the Niners. So the Niners got boxed in. They got pushed into the corner on this one without any choices, without any alternatives, really. And so you make this signing. But I think that they're going to rue this day. I think they're going to rue this contract. That's just too much money. That's way too much money to be giving him. I mean, what? Darnold's making half of that? Is Darnold half the player of Brock Purdy? Does anybody out there believe that? I'm not even a big Darnold guy. The Bay is gay. They always make me laugh. Randy Roberts, what app do you use for the sound effects? I want to try it with my wife. I got a soundboard, Randy. So I dropped some coin on this cool ass soundboard here, and I'm loving it, man. I'm trying to get used to it. But in regards to the Niners, it just brings up one of those old great quotes from one of the classic movies that we've had in our lifetime, Tropic Thunder.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
And I think that's what we've seen the Niners do today, hasn't it? I think that's what we've seen the Niners do today. But Randy, I'm slowly getting the clips. I want to have them for the play-by-play game stuff, as well on it. But I'm just building the clip slowly into the it's called the Rodecaster Pro 2, but it's a mixer I got set up that lets you just do innumerable little button drops if you want to, which is it gives me too much power. I could just sit here and push the buttons all day. I could just push them all day long. I dig the Ox Brandon. I think our cap space for next year is looking sweet, but why will we have so much space? Lost of free agents that we do not sign. The reason that you've got as much cap space moving on into the future, really addicted, has to do with just you haven't put yourself into a pickle with big major contracts in recent years. So you didn't sign Geno Smith. You didn't sign the DK Metcalf contract extension. You didn't sign Damian Lewis a couple of years ago when he was going to make the $13 million a year on average out there in the market going to the Carolina Panthers. I don't think the team's necessarily been frugal, but I think that they've been very careful with how much money they spend, especially big money contracts. And so it's partly just being very smart in your approach, monetarily wise, not giving out a lot of big deals, not really going out there and extending yourself into the future very much at all. Partly, I think that's done on purpose, though, Addicted to Hawks, because you're going to have so many young players in the next couple of years that are going to come up for contract extensions, and you want the space to be able to fit them in. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Devin Witherspoon, Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas, maybe Boye Mafe. These are guys that they're going to want to get on extensions. And so you need the space to get that done for sure. But it's part of the part that John doesn't get a lot of credit for on this, but avoiding bad contracts and not being stuck in a way where you've buried a bunch of dead money and voidable years into the future cap. And that's why I always do say that it's so important to recognize where you're at as a team, because you don't want to be borrowing for tomorrow for today if you're not really ready for today, because then you're going to get to tomorrow and then you don't have enough for tomorrow to get it done either. And you're stuck on both accounts then at that point. So just smartly applied by John on this one. But also there's going to be some of that money that's going to be earmarked for other places, but you're also just set up to be able to really lock it in at that point. Put the pedal down to the floor at that point. Make some big deals at that point. Take some big swings even. Martin says, have the Niners just done real damage to their franchise with the deal? Yeah. Yeah, there's no way to really dress this up in any other way unless you're basically just wanting to be a, if you want to try to be a, not you personally, of course, but if you were a Brock Purdy stan, I suppose you could make your peace with this somehow or another. But I think absent that, there's no way to really look at this other than just saying it's not good. So here's our sorry, one sec here. Oh. All right. So here was the Niners cap space right now walking into this, which is that they had a lot of cap space, but they had to sign this Brock Purdy contract. That's why they kept this cap space in so many ways. So you had $42 million, $43 million for the Niners coming into this deal with Brock Purdy right now as far as in cap space you have. What they also have, though, is look at this number right here. $81.322 million of dead money. $81 million of dead money is going, almost a third of their cap is just going to players no longer on their team. That's not good in itself, right? But this is where we go to 2026, where it's going to start to get interesting, because you had at that point $38 million on the cap. They're sitting about middle of the road right now. But this is going to be then a team that's going to have the Brock Purdy money click in, lowering down that significantly at that point. So their ability to make any kind of more moves or whatnot, they're going to be a little bit stuck here. And what you can see, as I've said, when you look to the far right-hand column, what you're looking for is black. You want the numbers to be black, not red. When they're red, that means you can't get out from under that contract. So Trent Williams on next year's cap, let's go to 2026 here. Trent Williams is going to retire. So you're just going to be sitting on purely all of the dead money, $34 million in dead money you'll be sitting on in next year's cap when he retires. Fred Warner at that point becomes very expensive. Do you want to continue to run with him? Well, you're only going to save off of his $26.7 million cap number. You're only going to save $8 million when you do release him. But you can see the rest of the guys. George Kittle, can't release him. Brandon Ayuk, they want to get out from under that contract. May still do that before this deal comes to fruition. The season comes to fruition, but there will still be dead money onto this deal. Christian McCaffrey, ain't getting out from that. Lamore. Michael Williams, they're not looking to get out for his, but Parasol, Mac Jones, these aren't bad contracts on that side of it on this other end, but there's a couple of big fatties in there to kind of show you as far as an indifference to this. Look at the Seahawks situation for 2026. Look at that. All black. Leonard Williams, black. Darnold, black. Uchenna, black. Cooper Kupp, black. Witherspoon, you're not looking to do anything with him anyway. Lawrence, in the black. In the black. This means that the black means that's you're saving that money if you wanted to move off of them. You don't have to. You got a lot of cap space. But this is the place you see the big difference on that right-hand column here between the Niners and the Seahawks, even moving into next year. And your ability to move off of contracts if you need to have flexibility, to be able to be nimble with what you're doing from your situation. Niners are not going to be able to be nimble. They are boxed in now going into the future. Doesn't mean they can't still contend. Doesn't mean they can't still be really good. Big part of this is going to be their drafting and development really locking into place now. That becomes vital because you're not going to be able to fill in the holes on that side of it. Garth, thank you for the $5 donation. Garth, I'm happy for Jesse and the Niner fan base that they got their quarterback. I just wish you felt their happiness. You know what I mean? You don't always feel their happiness on having that quarterback, kind of feels more like this, Garth. It's kind of more like, well, they start talking about him and you feel like they're talking about Brock Purdy like this.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
I mean, they like him, but do they like him? I don't know. Kind of just seems like they're like okay with him. Gumagar, 50 milli vanilli. Herbicide says, that's awesome. Well, sweet. Now they know how it feels to pay way too much money to a quarterback. They've avoided it through the whole Shanahan era. Great point, Herbicide, which is that through the Shanahan era, you've not had to pay the quarterback incredible amounts of money. When you gave Jimmy Garoppolo the deal you gave him, he was around the $25 million a year mark, which was a good contract. It was a healthy contract, but it wasn't a back-breaking contract on your cap, and you could sign all the rest of your guys and not be impeded by that. This will impede you. When you get to the area of paying a quarterback over $50 million average per year, there's no way around the fact that you're going to have to make some tough decisions on your team in order to accommodate that. Like you said, Herbicide, we saw it with Russell. The second you started paying Russell the big-time money, you started bleeding players. It's the reality of life in the NFL and why you have to be so very careful if you're going to give these top-of-the-market money deals out. And why I like to see John looking as he has with the Geno and Sam Darnold deals to look more for the blue-collar contract, to look more for what am I getting for my true bang for buck versus I'm just paying for the name or paying for what you've done in the past to get this contract, not for what you really will be with our team and what you're bringing to the table as a player. There's a price. John says, look at Purdy, those T-Rex baby arms. He does have some tiny ones, man. He does got some little tiny arms, doesn't he? He's kind of jacked, though, for being a little dude. John says they can have their 85 throw power. Yeah, it's tough paying a guy $53 million a year who can't push it past 40 yards up the field, isn't it? That's a tough one. Seth says, I need to see how my brother-in-laws justify this Purdy contract. They're both Niner fans. I don't know if you're going to find any Niner fans that are like, ugh. I think you're going to find a lot more like, okay. I think that's what you're going to get as a reaction from him in general terms. I mean, it's okay. Larry says Purdy can finally afford to live in San Francisco. He can finally afford one of those 800 square feet flats, right? Isn't that what it is? HHG, what cap space do they have left after this? So they're actually sitting on an okay amount of cap space right now for this current year. I have to see the contract details with the Purdy contract because the initial numbers that are coming out right now, HHG, they're just the agent numbers. So they're not actually accurate to the bottom line of what you're going to see to the actual year-by-year contractual hit to the cap. And certainly they're going to try to lower down the first probably couple years of the cap hit down as far as they possibly can. Guaranteed money, where are you bearing the void years? Where are you bearing the bonus money 3-4 years down the line? So it's very much still open-ended actually to what the exact years are going to be. They're sitting on approximately right now, they're sitting on $43 million of cap space. I would reckon to guess that this new contract with the amount of guarantees and bonus money that are in there, just in general terms, this probably takes them down to something like $25 million of cap space left this year. That would be my approximate guess at this point. But there still is, don't forget as well that there's a possibility here that they're still trying, and they've been trying to push for this for a year even before he signed his contract extension. I think that they're trying to still go out there and get Brandon Ayuk, is the Steelers. And so that's with the Niners dumping like they have this offseason, the dead money all left, right, and every which way in between. They may try to lump him in there and get that one done too, because they're trying to tighten the belt strap. Or says, who needs talented players when you have Shanahan as a coach? That's right. Mr. Fix-It-All. Just my opinion. Thank you for the $2 donation, just my opinion. Am I going to catch a Mariners game? I don't think I'm going to get out to Seattle to do that. I might. I'm going to get out. I'm going to get out to training camp. Just my opinion. So I'm going to get out there to do that again this year. So maybe when I'm out at training camp in July, I'll try to see if I can slip out and go check out a Mariner game if I can. If they got to the playoffs, I'd be happy to do some streaming on the Hawks Nest of some Mariner games. You know, if they do get in and they're able to bust through in one of these years. But yeah, I'm kind of watching them, side-eyeing them a little bit. I really wish the ownership there, just my opinion, would do a little bit more to try to give the fans a little bit more reason to believe that there's some hope there on the team being great. You know, they're just kind of leaning on the development and the young people's coming up, and that can work, but it'd be nice if they could just augment a little bit of that with some actual spending of some money and bringing in some real valid guys to kind of carry more of that offensive load there, more than leaning on the pitching staff like they seem to do at every turn, you know. But I'll try to. I'm going to try to in July if I can. And if they do get the playoffs, I'll live stream some games here on the channel for you guys. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Garth, man, you've been great today with all the donations. I really, really thank you. And you've always been awesome here in that way. I do really appreciate you for that. What's up with McCaffrey's micro tears in bilateral Achilles? That's a gay guy injury, right? What are you? You wearing a blouse? You got bilateral Achilles? What do you wear, a dress? Yeah, I guess this is part of that new thing where, 1975, you ain't looking and finding micro tears in an Achilles. Your Achilles busts or it doesn't bust. But now I guess, that these players can get a sense and a feeling, and they've got the technology now that they can look that deep into it. And it makes sense that they've driven for the technology to go this direction of it, Garth, because Achilles injury is the most maybe devastating that you, outside of like the ligament in like your leg tearing. I don't think that there's a worse one that you can have than the Achilles. And so it would make sense that they've probably tried to do more of technology-wise recognizing when that's starting to go, rather than just, it just happened, goes from 100 to 0, essentially. It's 100% working great and then just suddenly snapped. And that you would think that there would be some pre-indicators in there that you could kind of measure and test to see if it's starting to go, if there's some, if you keep leaning on this, it will happen. But you wonder how much were you feeling it for it just to be a micro tear, or was it just, you're so well attuned as an athlete that you can just kind of like move your foot a certain way and sense it's off in a way it shouldn't, and then go to the doctors on it, with that one. But I wouldn't mess around with it either, Garth. I'll tell you that. I still play a lot of basketball, and my big worry is the Achilles one. That gets a lot of basketball players, and that one's just a brutal one, man. Never the same after you have it, if you have it. Herbicide says the 49ers are going to be cooked for a long time. King Bomber says Niners are cooked. I think they're cooked too. I don't. This is you can't give this contract out. I mean, you have to, and that's the pickle with this one, where you're stuck in the NFL in these kind of situations. Every general manager, every NFL organization makes the same choice again and again and again, even when the signs are even lesser so that you should do it. I mean, the Tua contract was even worse than this one, where you're like, that guy, you're giving him that money? That guy? At least with Purdy, he's gotten you to a Super Bowl, and he played pretty well in the Super Bowl. But you've got so many other big contracts in the books already, and you've already starting to bleed out talent. You've got talent getting older, and now this is the timing of this one coming in. It does feel like that final sort of nail driven through the coffin a bit. Not that they're going to be bad this year, but that you can see the dark clouds coming on the horizon for this Niner team. And this does put them in a bit of a pickle. King Bomber, Brandon, is there going to be another NFC West roundtable soon? There is. There's been some tough back and forth communication at times between the roundtable folks on, they kind of have us go like start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. So it's like we get a little of that. We're going to do a show next Tuesday. And then I think after that, it's going to go more to, we're going to privately be doing it on our own channels here and then go back and have the roundtable start back up at the start of the year a little bit. But the roundtable is going to keep going through good. And next Tuesday, we'll be doing it. We're going to announce next Tuesday, we're going to be doing a deal where if we get enough donos coming in next week's show, we're going to schedule for kind of a meet situation in season on a Thursday night game between the Rams and the Niners in LA and have all of the roundtable folks kind of meet up at that spot. So, yeah, we'll be going this next Tuesday for sure. Thought we were going to do it this week, but it got bumped up a little, bumped. Catalyst says we cleaned it up last season, moving off guys like Jamal Adams, Diggs, and saved through all the moves this offseason too, with Geno, DK Lockett, Draymond, etc. Amen. Yeah, you sort of, great point there, especially about Jamal Adams, Catalyst, because you could have post-June 1st designated him, and instead you just released him outright. You ate all that bad money on last year's books, so then you could clean all that money on this year's books. Likewise with a Jamal Adams or with a Quandre Diggs in addition to that. So great point there, Catalyst. You took your bleeding, you took your pain already on the front end, and now you're a little bit relieved on the back end as we spin back around to it. You've set yourself up on your fundamentals to be really clean on your books right now. I'm going to watch Jesse's reaction. I'm going to have to check out Jesse's reaction too, my man. Tony Wright says, so now San Francisco has quarterback Brock Purdy, tight end George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, and Brandon Ayuk all signed to huge contracts. That's right. They've now put themselves in a position here where it's they've already been a team that's been pretty top heavy as it is. And now you become even more so top heavy. Let me show you this. It's a little thing I was keeping from last year kind of around to kind of show. This has been a little bit of adjusted, but this was off of last year. Where you can see all of these guys. So you had Bosa, number one positional rank, $34 million per year last year. Ayuk, it was top 5. Trent Williams, 3rd. I think Williams got his contract redone after this, by the way. This graphic was up. Now, they let go of Deebo Samuel, but that's part of this, and Javon Hargrave, but that's part of the $70 million of dead money that they're currently sitting on. Fred Warner, top 2. Christian McCaffrey, number 1. George Kittle is now the number 1. He signed a contract extension since this graph, so now he's the number 1 paid guy in the sport. And then Kyle Juszczyk is still the highest paid fullback in the sport. They brought him back after releasing him earlier this offseason. And then you can see the guy at the bottom of this list, Brock Purdy, who was the 79th highest paid guy for his position at the quarterback position in the NFL, now becomes top 5 guy. Top 5 guy. You pay all these guys at the top that much, you're that heavy to the top, you don't have as much of a middle class. And that becomes really then the key to the Niners on. They can get through it. There's a way to glide past this a bit, but then that means you got to draft and develop so bloody well to get around it. You're in a little bit of the confines are tight. The Niners are like the cave diver that you guys have seen, where they're going through those little holes and you're like, he's not going to fit through that, right? Like you start getting claustrophobic for him, your heart starts beating, your hands start sweating. They do that thing where they're inching their way through the crevasse, and they got to like twist their body down through, and they're going to have to back themselves out. They better hope not enough blood goes up to their chest or they'll just be fully stuck forever. It's a bit like that with the Niners right now as they're going through this cap situation. Seth says, update, my brother-in-laws love it. I'm shocked. I'll tell you this, Seth, they can be as happy as they want, but they can't say that they got a discount. You know what I mean? Hey, you guys may love it, but like you guys paid all the money on this one. You paid tariff prices on this one. You played Brock Purdy tariff prices on this one. Catalyst, isn't Ayuk missing a good portion of the season because he tore his ACL? I haven't heard any confirmation of it fully on that, Catalyst, but you're doing the right kind of math. It was a pretty catastrophic kind of knee injury. It was multiple things that he sort of tore and ripped. And it was a good halfway into the year in addition to this. So yeah, I think that there's definitely a possibility here where he's not ready to go at the start of the year at the very least. And if he gets back, is he at his typical self, or is it going to take kind of another full year to get him back around to where he kind of close to what he was before? Besides his 5 years, 265. That's a lot of money, huh? That's a lot of dough to be paying. That's more than I expected too, King Bomber. I thought they were going to talk him down below 50, at least get him sold on that. But it's a 5 year at 265, so they went extra years and everything. Riverside M's ain't going to the playoffs. It's going to be tough for them to get there, that's for sure. I don't know if I'd put that bet on it. 181 million guaranteed or Nassity. So there's no easy way out of the contract either if he doesn't perform to function. You're stuck. Just stuck. Hymns are a great team. The All-Star break, then it's all downhill. Randy says, 10 years ago while bowling, I pushed off with my right leg into my slide and thought somebody hit my Achilles with a baseball bat. I couldn't step on it, but I'm back to normal, whatever that is. That's good to hear that they got you back to right, because you hear a lot of people get that injury and they can never come back from it. And I'm already getting older and slower out there. I don't need to lose more steps, but it's such a scary one because it can be just the most innocuous step that causes it to snap. I think we just saw the Jason Tatum one that he suffered in basketball, where you see him do his little step there and you're like, man, I don't see anything majorly. Did it look like a normal basketball kind of play? Just you step at the wrong angle at the wrong place, the tendon's in the wrong spot, and snap. Martin says maybe it's easier and shorter to rehab micro tears and a better chance at a good outcome than surgically repaired, fully busted tendon. 100% it is. 100% it is, Martin. And you see that's where they're probably were impelled and motivated to try to get this technology right, is that there's such a nice room there for not just NFL teams, but all sports teams to want to be able to have this kind of tech, to be able to recognize this in their players so that they don't have to get to the full place where it's got a bid out on them, where you can salvage them that. Because when it does happen, the track record on Achilles is it's not like ACL. ACL, you can tear it. You can come back and get to pretty much, if not right at where you were before, you're very, very close to where you were before as far as a performative level. With Achilles, most of those players all will tell you that their foot was never quite the same. It never quite was to the same kind of level of reactionariness, and whatnot on that side. J House is in 3 years. Brock's agent will be asking for an extension. He might. You better play well if he's going to, I'll tell you that. King says, Emawari Spoon are going to be Brock Purdy's worst nightmare. Let's go. What are we doing? Goodness gracious. HHG, thank you for the $5 donations, HHG. Silver lining, they paid him now instead of after next season, when it could have been even more for how easy the schedule is for them. Oh, that's true. He goes up there and dices up this back end schedule, throws for 4,300 yards and, brings them into another 12-win season. Does the cost go up to $63 million per year? And then to your point on that as well, HHG, at that point, you're through the fourth season. So now you're going to be franchising him, which means that you're not going to be able to just necessarily lower down the base to the super low. Look at the base kind of low, but you're going to have to put on the extension at that point too. So yeah, there's a little bit of this where maybe they saw with that season and the way they was going to set up this year that he was really going to be able to feast, and then you were going to be caught in a real big pickle. I would have taken the risk if I'm the Niners at that point. To me personally, I would have said, I'd rather take that risk and get another play of making sure he is that guy and pay an extra 7, 8, 9 million per year on a new contract than do early. Because that's really the savings. It's not like he's going to push up to like $70 million if he goes out there and has a Pro Bowl type year for the Niners this year. It's like, okay, you go from 53 to 59, 61 million per year, and when we're talking about 5 years, 265, or 5 years, 295, 5 years, 300, is the difference really that big at that point? I would have stretched it if I could with the Niners. Maybe not possible. Maybe they didn't want to create the problems in the locker room with it, but especially with that easy schedule and the possibility that you could still go out there and knock open that Super Bowl window a little bit this year to grab one more final kind of year to pull out on it a little bit. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of what is the impetus to this as well. We don't want the waves going over the boat. We've had some contracting negotiations like last year where you had Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams both holding out, causing issues with your training camp, causing your issues to get those players at their best come the time of the season. You didn't want to go back down that road again if you're the Niners. So this makes a lot of sense, HHG, why they would want to do it ahead of time. But there's no world that exists that you say $53 million in Brock Purdy that you can make it make sense to me. I just think that's just too much, and you're not getting the returns for that kind of price to me. It's not a bad quarterback, but whoa, Nelly. That is a spicy meatball. And it's not going down the throat. Niners hold a special place in my black heart. AA, 75% guaranteed is all I cared about. Purdy had one good season with basically a full-on elite surrounding cast. He has indeed. And once you start to remove that supporting cast from him, I think you're going to see a lot different of a quarterback. I think you saw a lot different of a quarterback last year when the cast wasn't up to snuff. I don't think he played badly last year, but you're not getting the best version of Purdy then when he doesn't have all of those parts and pieces he can kind of lean on. Great coaching staff, playmakers on the outside, dynamic running back, good offensive line, great defense. That's what he's got in his back pocket to kind of work through for most of his time and starting there with the Niners. Some of that stuff starts to slide off the board. Can he carry that load? And let's not parse our words here, is that you as a quarterback, you're going to be paid $53 million per year. You need at times to be able to carry the load. You don't need to be looking back at the coach or at the front office saying, hey, can you give me some more help here? You're the help. You're the part that needs to elevate that. And I don't think that that's Brock Purdy's game. King Bombers got us going 12-5. If Darnold plays well, let's go, King. Love it, man. Love it. Garth Knight, thanks for another $5 donation here. And we're just about to 3 hours today, so we'll probably get to close here to putting a bit of a button here on the show. Garth says, Purdy got the gayest contract for a straight guy in San Francisco history. Kudos to Brock and his agent. I'm naked with only wearing a jock strap announcing this. Garth's hyped up over there. Garth, what is that in your hair? You're not this hyped, are you? Garth, what is that? Is
that a hair gel?
Is that hair gel? Why you're so excited over this contract, Garth? It's a lame contract. I would not feel good if I'm a Niner fan, knowing where our cap situation is at and knowing that now you've thrown this on top of the books. I'd go, oof. I'd be a little bit nervous on this one, Garth. I would. But glad to hear they got you excited, man. Wearing the jockstrap, and I know you got the cup in there too, man. I know you're going all the way with it. No half measures with Garth, folks. He's all in. All in. AA, San Francisco just made themselves irrelevant. It's the Rams, damn Lambs won the last draft a couple of years, and Seahawks for the foreseeable future. Agreed, AA. This to me this kind of puts you away. You grab your one more year here where maybe you've got the waters settled to maybe pull it out in that one final year with that easy schedule. But you move on into the future. Trent Williams retires. McCaffrey gets a little bit closer to that place of probably retiring. You move on from Ayuk. You're going to be in a way better, different state, not way better, way worse state, and you're going to be turning this thing over and doing it at the same time. You're paying that quarterback so much money. What's up, Brian? Greetings from hot Indianapolis. Let's go. Why are you stuck in Indianapolis? AA says, I'll give the Niners credit. It's not Deshaun Watson bad. Well, no, but that's obviously the worst contract in NFL history. So, okay, you guys didn't give out the worst contract in NFL history. You just gave out maybe one of the worst. It is a slight better, but yeah, sigh of relief for us, AA, for sure. If they did a 2-year, $75 million deal, I'd be with you on that. Yikes, they can get out from under it. This, 5 years, 265, 181 guaranteed. You're going to be in this boat for a while, whether you like it or not. Whether it's getting you down the shore or getting you down the river, or you're just stuck on an embankment, you are stuck in this ship for quite a bit of time. King says, it feels like we could have done so much more if Ryan Grubb wasn't our OC last year. There's a lot of other OCs I think that would have done a lot better with this offense. And if they'd done better with this offense, are you a game better? Yeah, if you're a game better, then you're getting the playoffs. And if you're in the playoffs, kind of anything can happen at that point. I think even with a little bit more improvement from the offensive line last year or an offensive coordinator doing a little bit better, I still think the bottom line on that King Bomber was that wasn't a team that was going to get to the Super Bowl last year. But could you have gotten a couple more wins if Grubb had been more functional as a play caller and functional as a developer of talent? Yeah, absolutely you could have. Absolutely. Part of that, though, too, was just you had to wait so long on the process with Mike McDonald to bring him in as a head coach. You were just you didn't have any real great options there at OC at that point. You just had to kind of pick through what was. Lawrence has said it already. Purdy's an excellent system quarterback, and that's not a bad thing, but he's not going to have a system to work in soon. Yeah. And he's a great system quarterback. You give this guy these great parts around him and the stability and the great coaches and the play calling, and he can be a successful quarterback. He can be a top 10 level quarterback when he has that all working in his favor. When you start to pull some of that stuff away, is it the same place? And this is what we've seen with teams across the NFL. It's absent the Purdy situation. It's that teams have a quarterback has some success, we have to pay the quarterback. There is no disassembling or there's no autopsy after the year of what brought the success out. Was it really the quarterback carrying the load, or was it these parts and pieces helping to elevate him and bump him up a bit? And it doesn't have to be that it's just the pure bumping up that makes the player, but it's the player is pretty decent, but the bumping up is really inflating him up a bit. And you've got to recognize that as a team so then you don't sign this very kind of contract getting you into a stuck situation because you just feel like you have to do it, not because it's the right decision, but because you have to do it. And that's where so many of these NFL franchises get themselves into trouble. And I feel like the Niners are probably here. Ryan says, we're on a fishing trip. Ooh, hopefully get some good fishing out there, man. Catalyst says the Steelers may very well have their first losing season. That offense looks terrible. It's possible. I think the offensive line is going to be the big key for that Steelers team this year. You drafted Troy Fautano in the first round last year. He lost all of last season. If he comes back now and he can play with some of the youngsters that they drafted last year, like Zach Frazier and McCormick, and with some of the offensive line is already set up around those guys, maybe they can lean on that line a little bit to carry the day, especially for a team that's going to really try to run the ball as much as any team in the NFL. If there's one team that's built with an offensive coordinator to not to have to have a dynamic play caller that can throw the ball all over the field and sling it, Arthur Smith is a guy that can get you around that a little bit. And they are going to play probably pretty good defense, but they don't have a lot there offensively, and the quarterback position is a big, big, big question mark. That's for sure. Dogzilla, I left for 2 hours. Great to see you still tuned in. We got some folks going today. We had the Brock Purdy contract. We had to talk about that a little bit there, Dogzilla. You know how it is. You know how it goes. HHG, if the O-line fails, time to fire John Schneider. We'll see if the seat gets warm, if it's again a bad line. There is always that potential with this team. We know that. Robert says, I'm just guessing, but I imagine Brock Purdy's contract is heavily backloaded. It's probably at least decently backloaded, Robert. You're right. Hard to say right now because we just don't have the exact numbers and how it breaks down. There is $181 million guaranteed of the 265. So that is a kind of as much as someone was saying above, as much the important part of this contract, in that you didn't just put funny money on the books. You put money that you have to pay, that you're going to have to give him, that there's not going to be any way out from underneath in a very quick, easy, soon process if it goes sideways. But all that being said, yeah, you're probably right. A little bit more backloaded. It's not going to be evened up in the way they're going to run this, especially with how their front of their cap situation looks on their books right now. Jordan, thank you for the $5 donation, Jordan. I really appreciate you for that. Sorry, just got here. Good luck to the Niners on ever winning a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. Good luck, man. Good luck. I'm showing this thing right here of notable contracts the Niners had on the books coming into this situation. And you've gotten rid of Hargrave. You've gotten rid of Debo. So those two are gone. But you can see that those two books, Debo was the 14th highest paid guy. Javon was the 11th highest paid guy. Those weren't the big contracts that was really weighing you down. And you've signed Kittle now. He's up to number one. Juszczyk up to number one. McCaffrey, number two behind Saquon Barkley. Fred Warner up at number two. Trent Williams is, I believe, higher than third right now. I think they re-extended his contract since these notable contracts came out. So now you're going to add Brock Purdy, who was once 79th highest paid quarterback in the sport last year at this time, who's now going to drop all the way from 79th to top 4. And the cap is finite. And when you start having to pay this amount of players, when you're starting to be this deep into a Super Bowl run, and everybody's contracts come up, and you got to pay everybody, you essentially make it an impossibility to maintain. And the NFL set up for this, really. It's set up for these teams to get big and then fall, and then get big and then fall, because you're paying everybody, and now it's all in the drafting and the development. You can't go out there and buy anything on the open market to fill in holes. It's got to be through the draft. It's got to be through the development. And that's too much of the onus to have to be on that to get the job done. And that's where the Niners are finding themselves now with this contract, Jordan. And I like you, don't see how you're winning a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy at quarterback position with the way that you've doled these contracts out. This just doesn't feel like they've smartly spent their money. It doesn't feel like they've made the hard decisions where they need to. I thought last year you should have moved Brandon Ayuk before you signed him to a contract extension. Kind of thought the same thing before the last time that they gave Deebo Samuel the money. Like, Deebo's going to go downhill from here. He's not going to be the same player. You're paying for past performance here. But the Niners just got kind of stuck on that carousel of, if you come up and you're due, we're going to pay you. Even if it's a fullback making $5 million per year that we barely use, we're going to pay you. And eventually you're going to pay everybody out. You're going to put yourself into a pickle of getting stuck where you need to be able to add players you can't add because you're just over the cap. You're stuck in spot. So I agree with you, Jordan. I don't think the Niners are winning a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. And I think that this absolutely puts, if there was already some nails being driven into that coffin all the way around, we've gotten to the other side of it and we're slamming that final nail in the coffin. And now it's just about, when are we going to drop this thing 6 feet deep? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next year? They got the easy schedule. They might get through this year, but into the future, it's looking mighty dark, Jordan. Mighty dark. Thank you for the $5 though, man. And for jumping on in the chat. Appreciate you for that. Brian Myers says, Brandon, did you watch the John Schneider interview with Rich Eisen? I did. I didn't really get a lot more from it than what I already kind of knew about the situation. So, I mean, John, I didn't feel like John gave us very much that was more kind of stuff we kind of already knew about it. But it was a good interview. Dogzilla says 55 will seem like nothing 3 years from now. I don't know, man. Teams that tend to sign these contracts with these quarterbacks at this mark end up feeling it during the portion of the contract somewhere. There's some point that they come to when spending that kind of money, they're like, well, we got to let go of this player and we got to let go of that player. Not because they're not good players or still productive, but because we just can't afford them. And it's hard when you're spending this amount on one player on your on the books, this amount of money, to not think that that guy's pulling away from some of that talent at that point. $3 Dak got $60 million a year, and realistically, would you take Dak over Purdy? I know it's the Shanahan system, but Purdy has been to a Super Bowl. Yeah, they lost it, but Dak hasn't come close. I wouldn't give either of the two of them that kind of money. $3 would be my answer to you on that. I think both of those guys are functional quarterbacks, and they both have some different skill sets they bring to the table a little bit. When you put it all in the wash, there's probably similar players at the end when they come out, and that they're somewhere between 10 and 15, depending on the year of where you'll rank them in the NFL as far as up against other quarterbacks in the sport. But I think more of the key for me on this $3 is just that you're paying a very significant portion of your salary cap to one player. Not just you're giving money to a quarterback, not just that you're giving out a big contract. You know, contract, we got $270 million is the salary cap space. You're paying a guy over $50 million a year. 1/5 of your cap now goes to one player. Think about that. I think what doesn't happen in that scenario is that it's much more, we're just saying at 1/5 of our cap. Are we getting that bang for buck? Are we getting a guy that's elevating the talent in that way to pay that high price? And in my opinion, when I look at the quarterback contracts that are on the books, almost universally, absent guys like a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, you're paying guys that are a lot closer to those four guys I just mentioned. You're paying those guys like they should be giving you that difference level of play, but they're not coming close to what those guys can provide on the field. Not that they're playing bad, not that they aren't playing good, but that there is kind of a gap here between those guys and these guys. But the gap as far as monetarily and what you're paying on them is something like this. Gap talent is like this. You're paying for a gap that's like this. And so what my opinion on that is that you end up overpaying for a player that's not giving you what you need if you're going to pay that kind of price. And it's going to rob from the rest of your team to do so. So I wouldn't do it with Dak. I wouldn't do it with this guy either. I don't think that just every quarterback who comes up should just be the next guy up to be paid this high water mark of money. I think it's gotten lazy in the approach of NFL teams and how they pay this out. I think it's fear-based and that they're scared about the alternative. They're just scared to lose him. It's not about the talent of the player and how good he is. It's now more about the fear of, well, what else are we going to do? It's the FOMO. Well, if we lose out on this guy, then what? Then we're going to be stuck and there's no answers and there's nothing we can do. And That's why I like the moving off Geno for a Sam. You didn't just say, well, we have to do Geno because he's our guy. That was the national perspective on this. Well, Geno's been here and he's been so good for you. You just have to pay him. You just have to give him all the money. You just have to pay him whatever he wants. No, we don't. No, we don't. Is he worth it? Is he worth it? Cold-blooded, no emotion, no sense of, well, he's been here for 3 years. Is he worth that money? And I don't think teams are asking that real key question 3 hour, which should be the question that guides over everything else. But it instead becomes kind of like maybe the 11th or 12th question some of these teams will ask themselves in the process, in my opinion. AA says, let's be honest, the Niners are not in a great position to do anything this year anyway, unless California finds the fountain of youth. It's mainly just they've got the easy schedule. I'm not going to say that I look at them as being a team that's going to be probably good this year, but the schedule is something that you got to look at and keep in mind that it's not just a matter of that it's a kind of an easy schedule for them. It is by far the easiest schedule in the entire NFL. Show it to you guys here again on this. And this is an NFL strength of schedule that's not based upon last year's record, but based upon Vegas's forecast for these teams this year. And you have the Niners, who don't just have the easiest schedule in the NFL. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL by a mile. It is not even close. So to say that it is a powder puff schedule, that it is just a lot of paper puppets that they get to walk through, it's kind of the way it is this year for them. Manuel says Darnold's contract looking real good right now. Yeah. Not too shabby, huh, Manuel? Kind of looking like almost a bit of a bargain, huh? Up against this Purdy deal. You go, whoa. Backloading guarantee aside, I think the key thing, Hawks Nest, is Brock Purdy worth $55 million APY, that commitment? I don't think so. He's shown something. Darnold's shown something. Yeah. And again, I guess the perspective on this AA is he's now making, on average, double what Sam Darnold's making. Does that really make sense? Is he really double the player of Sam Darnold? No, he's not. I don't think anybody would make that case. I'm fine if you want to say, well, he's better. I see you, kitty. I'm fine if you want to make the case that he's better. I'm okay. You can sell me on that. But not that he's twice the player of Darnold, but they're paying twice the cost. Dogzilla says, when we re-signed Russell Wilson, one time it set a record. The record got broken several times by other quarterbacks the following year. I'm not sure what you mean on that one, brother. Dune, Purdy has got to be the ultimate right place at the right time case in NFL history. Mr. Irrelevant to Super Bowl to fat contract in no time. Who would have thunk? He absolutely landed in the perfect place. No quarterback's landed in a more perfect spot than he did to have this kind of success like he has, Dune. You're right. Kind of a little bit kissed by the sun, kissed a little bit there, Brock Purdy. Lady Luck is in on his side. HHG isn't Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback right now? I do believe that is the case at the moment. Yeah. I think that's right, though. Yeah, so he's 240 total $240 million total values, making 60 on average per year. Joe Burrow's making 55. So here's the names. I'll show you guys. These are the names that are at quarterback and what they're making. So you got Dak, number 1, Joe Burrow, number 2 at 275. Burrow making 55, Dak making 60, Josh Allen making 55, Jordan Love making 55, Trevor Lawrence making 55. And I would reckon to guess that you're going to see the Brock Purdy contract come right between the Trevor Lawrence and the Tua Tagovailoa deal. Tagovailoa at $53 million. So he will now be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably the 6th highest paid quarterback in the entire sport, will Brock Purdy, when we find out the contract numbers on this one and where they all kind of parse out to. Dick Brandon not extending and re-signing Purdy kind of put their general manager behind the 8 ball, although maybe the Niners could have drafted a quarterback and start over. That's what I would have done. I would have been more aggressive in looking at the quarterbacks in the open market this offseason. And I would have taken that direction with it instead. I dig the Hawks. I would have had something better than Mac Jones to help me out through the contract negotiations so I'm not held over a barrel. They had to extend him right now. They couldn't extend him last year, of course. They had to wait 3 years through his rookie deal to sign him. But again, I do think coming back to it, does the cost, Purdy goes out there and has a Pro Bowl year this year. I don't think there's any reality that we would ever discuss where he's going to be an all-pro this year. He goes out, he becomes a Pro Bowler this next year. Does his cost, which we now know is at a floor of $53 million per year, does that cost really another year from now supersede Dak Prescott's $60 million? Does he become the highest paid quarterback in the sport next year off of a Pro Bowl season? Does Brock Purdy? Maybe, but I would have taken that risk. I would have said for $7 million, I'll take the risk to see if he becomes that guy. Not to mention you get me through one more year and then I can maybe get to next year and maybe there's some other quarterbacks available on the market I can go look at. But I think you could have found a creative way to find an alternative here and gotten similar performance from the position without having to spend this amount of money. Just like what our Seahawks did with the Geno Smith thing to the Sam Darnold thing. Not that you looked at Sam Darnold and said he's exactly what Geno is, but he's pretty close at a lot lesser of a price than we would have had to have paid. Catalyst, if we're paying guys off one good season, then Darnold and Purdy are very comparable. Purdy's 2023 season and Darnold's 2024 season are very comparable, at least on stats. Yep. That's where narrative, and if you've had some bad past history versus Purdy, you can say I've been good from the moment I walked in. That factors into these negotiations a little bit, but to your point, maybe it shouldn't. You know, how really good are you? We come back again to it. It really comes down to, rather than, well, have you earned this money? Are you worth the money? Are we getting the bang from the buck, the money? Are you a difference maker? Are you a guy that tilts the field? Because we're paying you money like you tilt the field. And if the answer on all of those accounts is no, then you've got to take an alternative path, in my opinion. If Seattle did a 4-year, $200 million, $150 million guaranteed contract for Darnold, I'd be blasting us the same way. I would as well. Steve says, thank you, San Francisco. Much love and kisses. Steve's over there like,
keep the change, you filthy animal.
I love it, Steve. Let's go. Seth says, who made that schedule for them? That's such an insane gap. It's that you have already what is going to be the weaker schedule because it's the NFC West getting to go through the NFC South and the AFC North. So you have those 8 common opponents right there that we get the benefit from. And this is why you have 3 teams in the NFC West that are all in the green area of this graph. So the red area is where you've got teams that are playing a tougher, a bottom 15 tough schedule, right? Those teams there. And then the teams that are in the upper and the green half are playing the easier schedules. But why the Niners get it is they get to play that AFC North and the NFC South. And then they also have the benefit of a last place schedule. So those 3 games that are separate, those 3 opponents that are going to be separate from whatever else we're playing in this division are so easy. They're such easy games. But that's what you get with the last place schedule like that. You know? Last place schedule comboed with the out of division schedule, which is pretty nice in addition to that. Dogzilla says, we tend to look at contracts as a measure of how good a player is, in our opinion. The market among teams is what decides it, and that extra 5% talent and experience seems to matter a lot to them. It does, yeah. I would say, Dogzilla, that the approach of the NFL, though, too, with this has also been kind of wrong and broken. That the NFL's recent history of just paying every quarterback who comes up has not been one that rewards those NFL teams for doing so. That you end up, as a general rule of thumb, kind of paying a maximum price for giving that quarterback contract out like you did. And that's where it's like they do pay it. I'm with you 100% that does just tend to be where the willingness is there to do that. But it doesn't mean they should do it. And it doesn't mean that it's been a success, that it's worked in the favor of NFL teams by and large taking this approach like it. I think the NFL, again, what I'm saying with this, Dogzilla, is I really feel like the NFL has so much more room to be much more creative in their approach to the quarterback position than they've been, and that they get very binary to it. It's very 0 and 1s. And it's got to be sign them or don't. Look for your guys where let's look at this thing a little more creatively, you know. Robert says the one simple truth is once you pay the quarterback big money, you have to hit the draft. Ask Philly. That is the truth. I will say that in certain respects of things. The one thing that I would just offer as an additional point to that, Robert, because it's not wrong, it's completely right. But the one thing that's very unique to the Eagles and what they've done here that just can't be overlooked a little bit is there's no team in the NFL right now that is more robbing tomorrow for today than the Eagles. And they're not just doing it in kind of a like small fashion or a small degree. I was showing you guys the Niner books, and that if you're in the far right on the red, that you're in trouble as far as you can't get out from under these contracts. And you can see right here that there's a lot of money here on the books here that's not in great shape for them when you look at how much money they've got buried into the future here. But just look at the Jalen Hurts contract, for instance. I mean, this just one example. They're paying, I'm not crapping you guys on this. This is no BS. You are paying all the way into 2032. You have a $10 million voided cap year hit for Jalen Hurts. Not when he's on the roster, not when he's under contract. 2031, not on the roster, not under contract. You're going to be owing him $20 million that he costs up against the books. 2030, not under contract, not on the roster. You're owing him $30 million. So they have buried $50 million of Jalen Hurts' money long after his contract is no longer active here after 2029. And he's not the only guy in this respect. This is an extreme amount of burying money, an extreme amount of burying money. And if it was just him, that would be one thing. If it was just this guy, that would be like, okay, well, that's just one guy. You get around that. Here's Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson, 2029. Or just go to 2028. No longer on the books. No longer on the team, theoretically. Might sign an extension, might still be there at that point. But you have $15 million of dead money in 2028 for Johnson. Then 2029, you got $12 million. Then 2030, he's 3 years, he's no longer been on the roster. You're still paying him $7.4 million in 2030, and you're still paying him $3.13 million in 2031. So the Eagles, in as an example, they have developed and gotten drafted talent and all of that good stuff there. But I can just go player after player. Here's Saquon Barkley. 2029, no longer under contract. You're going to owe him $13 million. 2030, $10 million. 2031, no long, 3 years removed of being on the books, on your roster. You're still paying him $6.1 million. 2032, 4 years after Saquon Barkley is no longer on the roster, you're paying him $3.3 million. He's going to count, not paying him that, but he's counting that up against your books still. So the Eagles have been more extreme than any team out there, Robert, in that way, and bearing those money, that they're even worse than the Niners and how much money that they buried down the line. And even then, Robert, to your point, you still have to draft great. You can't just bury money and get by that way. You still got to draft really well. Dogzilla, should they have saved $7 million to employ a Fant? I think Fant eventually on this is going to probably be let go, Dogzilla. I think him and Arroyo are kind of redundant on the roster right now. I think you only are going to keep one and you're not letting Arroyo go. I think it's just they're probably trying to find a trade partner for Fant where you get a little bit of something back for him, which I don't think there's going to be much of anything out there for him. Dude Moose is glad John Lynch isn't our general manager. He'd be a car salesman's dream. He seems to shell out cash with little discretion. He is. He's like, what's the sticker cost? Ooh, that's a good deal. I'm in. Like no negotiation with Lynch. It's just whatever the sticker is. He may wait a little bit of time, dude. He might make you sometimes wait into training camp, but he's always going to pay the sticker prices. I think some of that is also a little bit of what we've heard, Dune, is Shanahan is really the de facto general manager there. And Johns kind of has to sit the backseat shotgun to what Shanahan wants. Space, we have the toughest schedule? No. We're in a good spot here. So when you're in the green, you're in the easier than average section of things. And you can see the Seahawks there at the 13th. So we have the 13th easiest schedule in the NFL. The Cardinals have the 11th easiest schedule in the NFL. The Niners have the first easiest schedule in the NFL. And then you see that the Rams are one of the teams in the red because they've first place team, first place schedule. So they've got the 20th hardest schedule. But that also speaks to our how easy the out of division schedule is for us. The common opponent out of division schedule is for all four teams in this division, because you can see even the Rams with the first place schedule are almost in the green. That's how kind of easy it is this year, a little bit. Robert says it's a risk due to Brock's shoulder and elbow. That's a great point, Robert. One I hadn't talked about today, but one to also consider with this is that Brock's arm and what's going on there is still very much a question mark. And he's had some lingering stuff from that Tommy John surgery that has come up from time to time. It's not already a guy that's built with the strongest of arm strength to be able to just power the ball wherever he wants to throw it. And boy, if you've got a guy with $181 million guaranteed and he's one wrong hit away, and I don't know how many times you guys have seen with him, but Brock Purdy's at that little bit of a reduced stature size, and those edge rushers are at a little bit of a bigger size, that when you get an edge rusher coming off his front side, not the blind side, and he's taken about 4 of these hits where they come around that edge, and he just gets laser locked in on where he's throwing. He's so tough, and he's got so much poise in the pocket. He drops that arm back, and I've seen those defenders hit that arm in the same way that caused the injury against the Eagles time and time and time again. I don't know if it's just that he's just in that because of his stature and height that puts him in just the right spot to take that hit in that way when that arm goes back. But one good hit away from that being done, Robert. One good hit away. Catalyst, are the Eagles trying to be the Saints with this contract structure? It's worse. I mean, it's more extreme. Rather than saying worse, let me say it's more extreme, AA, than even what the Saints have done. What the Saints will do is they do a little bit more of the game of base to bonus. So that they'll put the contracts over the books, but there's a lot of guys with base that have a lot of fluidity to be able to transition that base to bonus. What the Eagles have done is they've just buried everything into void years. I mean, buried the void years, and almost to the point of burying them 10 years out. So there's not another team in the NFL that has taken it this extreme. And from Roseman's perspective, it's probably an easy sales job to your prospective owner, because you're saying to Lurie, hey, we've gotten you to 3 Super Bowls in the last 7-8 years on the back of this approach. Why change it? But it's also them not being frugal or necessarily super smart in their money or how they're spending their money, and the draft and development's been a key of it, and how they do that is a real thing that lets that engine keep going. But you bury that much void money, you can fit a lot more players in. Dune says, I wonder how much extra revenue a Super Bowl winning team earns. Has anyone ever given that some thought? Would be difficult to figure, I suppose. Sponsor incentives, broadcast revenues, merch, etc. It would be pretty tough to factor. Because like you say on the sponsorship stuff, how much does the sponsorship increase on your in-stadium deals and your in-stadium marketing when you are a Super Bowl winning team versus a bad team? There's a lot that probably goes into that. But your bottom line on is to what you're kind of intimating is true, Dune, which is that the bottom line is you're going to get more revenue in if you have a Super Bowl run. You're going to be able to afford a lot more. You're going to be able to hit those escrow costs when those contracts come up. Robert, Brock's hoping Trent Williams stays healthy. He better, because they don't have a lot behind him, Robert. And that line is, as Space was talking about above on it, is not in good shape. Not in good shape. I just read that Jamal wants to go back to the Jets. And I think he's done at this point, I think. I'm sure he would like to, but I mean, that ship's kind of sailed. Not his fault, man. Just injuries are tough. Really, really tough. Hey, kitty. There, kitty cat. Max says if they had the contract correct, if they have the correct Hawks win total, the Niners schedule wouldn't look so easy. We're going to wreck them in their $50 million man 2 times. Let's go. I like it. I like it. Let's go. Come on now. Come on now. Probably say that. I should always say that right here. If they had the correct win total, the Niners wouldn't look so easy. We're going to wreck them in their $50 million man 2 times. I love it, man, Max. I love it. I'd like to take the bet, Dogzilla, even in California, like you guys in Washington. We can't do those prop bets unless you have like an IP rerouter or whatever. So, but I'd take the 7.5 myself all day long. I was recommending doing it last year too, and it would have paid off for if you took my advice last year on it. I would do the same. Big Docs, Brandon, has Vegas set an over-under line on Jared Ivey sacks this year? I'm thinking 4.5 sounds right. Ooh, that's going to be hard for him, Addicted. I mean, I think as Herbicide says, it's going to be hard for him to make the roster as it stands because you're probably on the active roster only going to be carrying 4 edges, to where even getting to be the 5th edge on the roster, if he's even really good, you're not even getting out there active game day wise. I was looking through Ivey's tape last night. Really fun tape. Guy's very capable of making some noise here and bringing something to the stage. But you're just so deep at your edge group right now. There's just not really an opening or a pathway for him to go in there and get a lot of reps. I mean, that's really what would hold him back as much as anything. If you give this guy, if he was the 3rd guy in the rotation, Addicted, and coming out there like that, certainly capable of giving you 4.5 sacks in a rookie year, but he'll be the 5th guy at the least coming off that bench. And I don't know, unless there's some injuries, if he's just going to get very many opportunities. JL says if Jamal would have learned to tackle instead of run full speed into guys, bro was crazy. He did play at his own speed in that way, JL. That's for sure. He played at his own speed. Grandizer Brandon with Pumpkin, Dr. Claw, and his cat from Inspector Gadget cartoon. That's right. I'm also Spectre. I'll take that one as well. Spaces, if you go to the casino, you can make the bet in Washington State. Oh, that's right. If you do the casino, you're kind of in the Faraday cage. They'll let you roll it full at that point. I would put it down myself. I think we're over 7.5 wins easy. Max, if they had the correct, I read that, Max. Best guess on how many of the fun draft can make the 53? I think all of them make the 53 with the exception of probably Richmond and probably Ricky White. But I think both of those guys end up on the practice squad. I think everybody else makes it onto the active roster, including Robbie Oots, Dogzilla. Just those 2 guys would be the only 2. I think Cable Dew becomes your other lineman. I think Cable Dew ends up flipping off. You bring in Cable Dew, and I think that's where a Bradford's probably going to have a hard time. It's either Bradford, Lamea, or Cable Dew. Those guys are all kind of fighting, I think, for potentially one spot. I'd go with something like that. All right. Well, we got a good 3 hours in today. If you guys could for me today, please do hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Helps me show up on the algorithm. Helps me show up for people looking for good Seahawks content. We've got a lot loaded up here over the next couple of weeks here as we're going to go through this offseason, and we ain't stopping here. We're just going to keep on going, keep on cooking, keep on rolling. And we got some really fun shows this next week we're going to be taking a look at. So Monday morning, we're going to come back and we're going to be looking at the NFC West tracker, including this move that Brock Purdy just made. But we're going to look at each individual team this offseason, the moves they've made, what they've done a little bit with the coaching staffs, what we're going to have to be approaching with them as far as any changes in schematics, which luckily there hasn't really been on any of that of either side of the ball for any of these 3 teams we play. But every year we like about this time, we get through the draft, we get through free agency, want to take a little bit of a closer look in at them and what they're doing on Monday. We're going to come back on Tuesday, and we're going to talk a little bit about how I believe we have seen over the last few years, especially here in Seattle, the modern day running back cliche proven true. And as your Seahawks a couple of years ago went back-to-back in the draft, took second rounders of the running back position and back-to-back in the draft for the first time since the Bengals did it 10 years ago. And in both of those 2 cases, neither of those 2 teams really got the benefits of taking those dynamic running backs to the top of the draft like they did. So a little bit of a discussion about how that has been proven true, how the analytic folks have been proven right when it comes to how you approach the running back position and to get the most productivity out of the running back position. We will be looking a little bit at Bryce Cable and maybe a little bit of Richmond if I can find a little bit of his tape, the kid out of Kansas that we took. And then we'll be diving into a little bit of the rookie free agent guys in this class who can bring some impact. We just talked a little bit about Ivy, who would be my number one guy, but don't sell Zy Alexander short as well. Zy Alexander short, a guy with some real true talent, some really good size, some good all-around ability, a guy who might end up being a guy to even overtake a guy like Nehemiah Pritchett on his roster spot here and really, really ascend for your Seattle team. So we'll be looking at a couple of our undrafted rookie free agents as well. A little bit of a look in the next couple of weeks at Witherspoon and a couple of other just real fun specific shows looking at the Seattle Seahawks. But we're going to keep this going Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Still got the roundtable coming up as well next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. So a lot loaded up for you guys next week. I hope you guys are ready for that. If we got any breaking news, we will, of course, go live. Your Seattle Seahawks are looking good. This was a hell of a draft for your Seattle. We just put the button on it today with Ricky White. He did a great job from John Schneider's perspective of really looking for those high upside guys throughout the whole course of this draft while still finding guys who had the high upside but also had some productivity to go off of. So they're not just a roll of the dice. They're not just a penny in the wishing well, but actually a guy that might be able to come in and really give you something. That there's a lot of reason to have some optimism on these guys. And if this draft can just bring out 3, 4, 5 starters in there in the mix of it, or some guys that can find some roles on this team into it. That's what we need to this team. We're looking for difference makers, and that's why I think they really concentrate on the upside. But if those guys can develop and the role guys can kind of fit in, that's when we take that next big step forward to getting back to contending status. Be the fun part, track and monitor as we move through this offseason into training camp to see if that young talent can come along. Hell, see if John might have one more big move up his sleeve, because we do know what John Schneider, as he has said many, many times over, upgrading the roster construction. It is not something that's just done at this time of year and at that time of year. He is always looking to upgrade his roster, and this man has made many moves to back this up over recent years. Deep into the offseason, just before the start of the season, he's willing to make these kind of major moves if he thinks it's going to help take his team up another notch. So something else that's just going to be fun to track about this offseason. I thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Like I said, if you can do me a favor and hit that like button, maybe get subbed up if you get the chances, I would really appreciate it. I will be back soon here on Monday with that show, looking at this NFC West and what they're doing. They just signed Brock Purdy at $181 million, so it's always nice when you get to watch your fellow NFC West teams do stupid things. That always puts a smile on my face, especially on a Friday. So we'll be back here in 48 hours, a little bit less than 48 hours. But until that time, do not you ever forget. Don't you do it. Don't you dare do it. Don't you forget. Go Hawks.